YouTube just to make sure it works.
Hey, Mark.
Hey there.
How are you doing?
Oh, I've been better. Oh, too many devices. Oh, Christian is here?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, he's at the beach.
I wish.
Is Rich, where's Doug? Is Doug here? Doug's here.
Yep, I'm right here.
Elizabeth, we have to go walking with our dogs, even though he's a puppy.
Hey, can I come too? I'll bring
Sure.
Nosy Rosie.
Sure.
Cool.
They're-
Absolutely, you guys. Yeah. Once he gets ready to roll, he's still in that 3-month. He's like a little crazy, guys, but he's chimed into a few community board meetings already, so he'll fit right in with the community on chiming in all the time.
That's right. Community board dog.
Yeah, he's like the honorary mascot. Well, along with all of our dogs and pets, but in any event, it's good to see everyone. I hope everyone's had a good summer. It's good to see everyone back.
He lived. It's a big deal.
Oh, this was summer? Oh,
Exactly. Whatever month we're in right now.
I agree.
I'm glad it's over.
Not yet.
Is it 2021 yet?
I'm with you, Susan.
Exactly.
Summer's not over yet, people. We have 3 more weeks of summer.
Okay, I'm gonna start letting people in, okay? We'll start the webinar.
Yeah.
Rich is with us too, Mark.
I think I just got him.
Oh,
as
you
well.
got him, yeah, right, yeah.
Does anybody see Captain Zuber on the line?
Looking.
No, I don't either.
Okay, Jennifer Stark, you're back too. How are you? Hi, Jen. You're back also. Okay, well, see there, we got some training by the fourth new person. They're all. Okay. Go ahead, Jen.
Hi, Mark, it's Jay. Can you hear me?
Hi, Jay.
Okay. Hello.
Okay. We've got a long night ahead of us. There are still people filing in on the participant side, on the attendees side. I'm going to give them one more minute and then we're going to get started because we've got a long night ahead of us.
Just some.
All right. It's 6:33. We're going to get started. Good evening. My name is Mark Diller. I'm the chair of Community Board 7. Welcome to our September full board meeting. While the first order of business on our agenda is the business session, I thought a few words of explanation about what tonight is going to be about and how we're going to proceed would be in order. This is our regularly scheduled full board meeting for the month of September. There are, in order to meet our responsibilities to city agencies and various other things that community boards are required to do, we need a meeting that includes our business session. And so that's what we're going to start with tonight. We are aware that folks are here in part because they are concerned about things that are happening in our community. And there is a public session at the end of this meeting. I'll talk more about that in a second. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about what community boards are and perhaps a little bit of what they're not. Community boards are composed of 50 volunteers. There's a paid staff, of course, but all of us that you see on the screen tonight are volunteers. We were appointed by various elected officials. The role of the community board is one of an advisory body that weighs in on a variety of matters ranging from applications to city government to issues of concern. With respect to, I know a lot of folks are here because they're concerned about the overlapping issues of homelessness and the presence of shelter clients that are being housed in some of our hotels. One of the things that is important for everyone to keep in mind is that the Department of Homeless Services makes the decisions on those matters, in this case, on an emergency basis. So we learned about this when you did. This was not a matter in which we were asked to opine or were welcomed to give our opinion in terms of the decision-making process. This is somewhat consistent with our role as an advisory board, where we try to facilitate discussions, we try to share information, and we try to advocate for solutions. Because we knew that we had a meeting, a business session that we had to use tonight, we scheduled last Monday an information session where we tried to perform some of those functions. We tried to connect and have the community to hear directly from the people who did make decisions at the Department of Homeless Services and the people who are in charge of operating the hotels in the persons of the service providers who were there. We would have, some folks have written and suggested that we should have had a greater role in the decision-making process, and certainly our board would have welcomed that, but that was not an option that we could require or insist upon, assuming that we knew about it. So there were 1,389 people at the highest point on Zoom, and we gave that precisely to, we gave over an entire evening to that one issue in recognition of how important it is to so many members of the community. We will have a public session at the end of this meeting. It will be open to anybody. Two of my colleagues have been putting together a sign-up sheet, which they will drop in the chat at various times to indicate what it is that you are hoping to speak about. This is the first time, it didn't exist at 5 o'clock this evening, so please bear with us as we're trying to invent this as we fly. But it is our rough attempt to try to make sure that we get a representative sample of all the things that you are here to talk about. So we will do our very best to get as much of those in. That said, there were, at last count, something like 390 people signed up for this meeting. There are 137 attendees right now. There is simply no way that we can call on everyone, even if we limit the amount of speaking time. And we will limit the amount of speaking time. And right now I'm going to look, this is something that my colleagues on the board know is anathema to me, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask everyone, including our board colleagues, to be parsimonious with their time. Please plan in advance what it is you want to say about any resolution or any matter at the end of the meeting for the public. We're going to go with 1.5 minutes. You'll get a warning at 1 minute when that has expired. It goes by quick, but we are committed to hearing as many of you as we possibly can in this meeting. We recognize we won't get to everybody, but we'll do our very best. We'll give over at least an hour of our time at the end of the meeting to hear from all of you. The sign-in sheet will be our attempt to hear from everybody, but if it doesn't work out, then we will go to a raise hands function and try to deal with it that way. Since we had representative groups and elected officials speak at the Monday meeting last week, we're going to reserve as much time as possible. There are a handful of elected officials who would like to address us, and I've already asked them to limit their remarks to a couple of minutes as well. It is likely that we will not get to the public session until about 8 o'clock. I always live to regret these estimates, but that's a fair estimate considering that there are 1 or 2 resolutions on the board on the docket today that may elicit their own kind of public testimony and significant board discussion. So we will do our best, and once you've signed up to speak, if you want to drop out for a bit and come back and rejoin us, that is something that I want to make sure you're aware is an option. Of course, we welcome you to stay with us for the entire meeting. There have been a number of folks who have written to me. I've tried to respond to as many of you as I can, but I apologize if I didn't get to everybody. In terms of what else is the community board doing with respect to some of the issues that you have brought to our attention. We are continuing with small group meetings with stakeholders, and the future of this, considering the number of people who have turned out at these 2 meetings, it is likely that we will need to rely on representatives from stakeholder groups to move our conversations forward. I am actively involved, along with the borough president and her wonderful staff, in trying to set up the next of small group meetings where we try to hammer out solutions to problems that have been brought to our attention. We hope for one of those later this week, and we will continue to have them for as long as there are reasons to have them. We will push the Department of Homeless Services and the service providers to continue to attend, and we will look for solutions together. Going forward, our standing committees will be evaluating their agendas in light of all the issues that are coming before us, and I will look for an opportunity to meet with our committee chairs and co-chairs to make sure that they are supported in the best way that I can, and to make sure that they have what they need to address whatever it is that's within the bailiwick of that committee to discuss. As I said, the focus needs to be on representatives at this point, and I know that there are a lot of well-formed groups, and so we will do our best to continue to reach out to them and to hear from them. A last thing that I want to make sure that I mention before I start turning it over to the business session, and potentially to Captain Zuber if he is with us, because I know that the NYPD has limited time to speak with us, given all that's going on. So if I could ask Christian and Rich to look for Captain Zuber.
Yeah, he's here.
Very good. So he'll be next if he wishes to speak now. The next is that while there's a lot of discussion about homelessness, both street homeless and shelter clients, and I encourage all of us to speak about everything in a way in which we would be later find acceptable. Not to alter your content, but to speak with respect to all of us, because that's what's going to move this conversation forward. But I've also heard a lot from a lot of folks about the need for affordable housing as permanent housing, and that is something that CB7 continues to push very hard for. We will have more to say about that in the coming months with respect to funding and options that may be available that we can use our influence to try to affect. So welcome to CB7. Thank you for indulging my introductory remarks. We will do our best to move our conversations forward and to move our meeting along. But right now, just in case we lose him later, I wanted to call on Captain Neil Zuber, who is the commanding officer of the 20th Precinct. Welcome to Community Board 7. I understand you'll be addressing us both on behalf of the 20th and the 24th precincts, just as Inspector Yaguchi did last Monday on behalf of the 2 precincts as well.
Yes, thank you. I really don't have any prepared remarks except to say that we know what the hot button issues are. We know what the lightning rods are here in the community. Everybody seems to be talking about the homeless issue, and specifically about the shelters. Going back a couple of weeks now, everybody has been complaining about quality of life. How have the homeless people on the streets, how have the people who have recently been placed into Lucerne, the Belle Claire, the Belle Nord, been affecting the quality of life? And there's a perception that there is an increase in drug use, increase in public lewdness, a lot of issues that were not present this time last year on the Upper West Side. We've been pushing everybody, please, when you see this, you have to report it. And that's been our primary agenda for the last 3 to 4 weeks. If you see public lewdness on the street, or if you see drug use on the street, by all means, take a picture, send it to CB7, send it to your public elected officials, which is what a lot of people have been doing instead of calling 911. But we ask you, please, on top of all that, please call 911. If we're not aware of it, if we're not aware of exactly when and where it's happening, then we can't possibly address it. And I want to say, just as a brief anecdote, when this issue started raising its head about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we went back within the confines of the 20th precinct for a 4-week period, 28 full days. We had 5 911 calls about drug use out in the open, only 5. When in the meantime, we were receiving many, many emails forwarded to us from elected officials around the city. So have no doubt that the people on the street, the people in the community are seeing a lot more of this than was being reported. So we're pushing, please get the word out to please call 911. And it worked. Yesterday, I'm happy to say that based on the increased reporting and our initial investigation, we were able to bring Manhattan North narcotics detectives into the 20th precinct. In a 2-hour period, they were able to go out, make 12 arrests of drug dealers and people buying drugs on the street. So this root cause of what is driving so much of the quality of life issues was addressed in a very, very big way yesterday. That's thanks to the partnership that we have with the community. The people who live here, who walk the streets, who know what looks right, who know what looks wrong, have to please report it to us. And one day we were able to take 12 people off the street, along with all of the drugs involved, along with all the proceeds. Now, that's significant on the surface, but when you look at that as the root cause of so many of the other quality of life issues, the people who are out buying the drugs are most likely committing other crimes throughout the day. They're going into the store, they're stealing a couple of things so that they can sell it for a few dollars on the street so that they can get enough money to buy their drugs throughout the day. That's been taken away. So we see it as a multi-tiered approach. Addressing that root cause is removing all of those other quality of life issues. It's a success story, something that's very new, that anybody who follows us on Twitter saw that we posted it a little bit after midnight. And it's something that going forward, we are going to continue to push for.
Thank you very much, Captain, and congratulations on the arrest and to your team. I've just been told that the Zoom is frozen for one of my colleagues. Is it frozen for everybody? No, okay. I think it's probably a local issue with that one person then. Captain Zuber, just not to belabor, but if you could speak for just a couple of seconds about when does a person call 911, when does a person call 311, and where do they send the video or the photo snapshot that you just mentioned to the NYPD?
Yeah, that's been a question that we're getting repeatedly. I just came off another Zoom conference just a couple minutes ago. That's why I joined a couple minutes late, and that's a question that several people had there. If you call 911, a lot of people are afraid that they don't want to clog up the system. I promise you that's not going to happen. When you call 911, the 911 dispatcher who gets the call is trained to say, okay, this is a police issue, it's an emergency, it's a priority 1, it's a semi-emergency priority 2, or it's not a police issue at all. In fact, that's something that we're going to reroute to sanitation, or we're going to reroute to the fire department, or we're going to reroute to the Department of Parks. So if you're not certain, call 911. If it's something that's very, very simple, like a noise complaint, you're in your apartment and you hear banging on the walls or loud music next door, well, that's a noise complaint. That's something that can go to 311. If you're not sure of what you're seeing on the street, if there's a couple of people hiding in a doorway and you think they may be using illicit drugs, call 911. By all means, err on the side of caution. We're going to get there that much faster, and we're going to do our investigation.
Very good. Thank you, Captain Zuber. We do have to pivot to, I have to keep the meeting moving for as long as you can be with us. We're grateful for your presence. And again, congratulations on the arrest. With all of that said, the agenda was posted on the website. Just to review it quickly, there will be resolutions from a variety of committees that have been voted on over the last couple of months, and they will come up for votes. We will then have a new business, which relates to an internal board matter relating to our bylaws and the difficulty of voting online. We will then have nominations for next year's officers for our board. They will be an election in October. I'll have more to say about that a little bit later. And then we will go to the elected officials and the community session. I'm going to keep us moving. I'm already behind where I hoped to be. So Business and Consumer Issues Committee, you're up. I'm not sure which of you is going to make the
I think they
make
both
the presentation.
Mark, can you put up our resolutions on the can you put so for everyone to see?
I only have one of them, and
Oh, the August, yeah.
yeah. Why don't you just describe them?
Okay, Chris, did you have them in front of you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
So we had two liquor license applications. The first one is for 120 Riverside Boulevard. This is a place that is they run a business and they have a cafe added to it. So they just applying for the liquor license. Now there was no one was against this, and they were well received and they were approved by the committee. The second resolution is 483 Columbus Avenue, Bonito Restaurant. There, the several partners one partner is buying the business from the other ones, and because of that, they have to apply for a new liquor license. So that also was well received and approved by the committee. Any questions?
Jerry, what's the name of the restaurant of the last one that you just mentioned?
Bonito Restaurant.
And what was the address?
It's 483 Columbus Avenue.
I think
Thank
what
you.
Bellini was or is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Call the question.
Well, we have to see if is there anybody in the attending who is here to speak on this issue. I don't see anybody, so now let's call the question. Can we? Is there anybody who's going to vote differently on one than the other? I don't see any hand in that regard, so I'm going to ask for one vote on both both resolutions. If for those who are able to use the raise hand function, please do so now. Okay.
Good.
Okay, so I'm raising my hand. Louisa, Christian, Doug. I've got Doug McGowan with a physical hand. I've got Richard Ash with a physical hand.
Shelley has a physical hand.
I'm sorry, I should have been counting. We'll start again. Leave your blue hand up if you've got it up. Let's see. So me is 1, Christian is 2, Doug Kleiman is 3, Doug McGowan is 4, Richard Ash is 5, Peter Sampson is 6, Shelley is 7.
Paul Fisher had his hand up too.
Donahue is 8, Ethel is
Louisa.
9, Amy is 10, and I'm sorry, who was the other person?
Paul
Louis.
Fisher.
Is 11. So 11 plus 30 is 41.
Plus
Plus
Louisa.
one, Audrey.
Plus
Did you get
Audrey
that?
is 42. Thank you, Audrey.
Did you get that, Donahue?
Yes.
I did, yes.
Okay.
So that's 42. Hands
Mark,
down
did
now,
you
please.
get me? Mark, did you get me?
Yes, I did.
Good.
All right, so hands down.
You may have to lower all the hands at one time.
I tried. There it is. Okay.
Okay, got it.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining?
1.
1 abstention, okay. And anybody ineligible for cause? Andrew Ritchie, are you ineligible for cause?
No, that was a abstention.
Okay. That was the abstention. Okay.
Oh, sorry. No, I had my hand up. I was voting in favor.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm using that.
Okay, then the vote is correct. Okay, so we have, what was it, 42 to 0 to 1 to 0
Mm-hmm.
on both. Thank you, BCI. We're moving on to the Preservation Committee. I'm not sure who's going to present.
Actually, Mark, the abstention that I counted was Andrew, who correctly said he was actually voting in favor.
Oh, so it's 42 to 0 to 0 to 0?
Right.
Very good. Did the secretaries get that? Okay, thank you.
Wouldn't it be 43 then? Whatever.
Andrew, your vote was a yes or an abstention?
My vote was a
Mark,
yes.
I'm not sure if you.
Sorry, maybe I didn't lower my hand in time, but yes.
Jay, what was your vote?
Yes.
Okay. So it is 43 because I didn't have Jay. I didn't see your hand either way. So that's 43 to 0 to 0 to 0. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Preservation, who's here for preservation? Is Michelle?
I am Mark.
Very
I
good.
am.
Take it away.
Hi, everybody. We have 6 resolutions. We met in July and August because, as you know, LPC doesn't wait for us. But the first one, it concerns the building at 305 West End Avenue between 74 and 75th Streets. The application was to install rooftop HVAC units, an equipment screen, canopy restoration, and a second floor equipment screen installation. This building is the, everybody's still there? All right, thank you. This is the luxury senior assisted living residence. It has 191 units. The canopy, in effect, part of the restoration of the canopy has been approved at staff level with the LPC, but they came to us for accent lighting, replacing the bronze aluminum ceiling panels, downlights, and this is in the front of the building, and lights, heating lamps. For the, now, how can you see that? The
I don't have that slide up, so you just have to go over that.
Okay,
This
so
is the backyard.
75th Street, minimally observable from the street. There's a small cutout there that air conditioning units were installed, and they have to put a, they want to put a wall with a little bit of fencing on top to separate the air conditioning units from the terrace that the tenants would use, the residents would use. And the third part of this, I thought it was only two, involve, wait a minute, hold on.
It's the air conditioners themselves, right?
Right, the air conditioners themselves that were installed before the applicant came to us. And as Jay pointed out, we're not there to tell people to knock things down and not approve, but and we're happy they came to us and told us they installed the air conditioners before they got any approval. But without the wall and the wrought iron fencing, it would have been a little harder to do that. Needless to say, that was all resolved, and we approved these changes by a vote of 6 to 0 to 0 to 0, non-committee board members 1010. Any questions on that or comments that anybody on the committee wants to make? All right. Oh,
Question?
Is there anybody in the community that wants to speak on this issue? Rich, do we have anybody from the sign-in for this?
No, the first sign-in is for agenda item 8.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so then I think we're ready to vote, yes?
okay.
So, Michelle.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
So we're going to call the question, same as last time. We're going to do a show of hands. Use your virtual hand if you can, and show me your physical hand if you can't. So I'm 1 physical hand. I see Louisa is 2. Doug is 3. Shelley is 4. Peter Sampton is 5. Doug McGowan is 6. Ethel Sheffer is 7. Bev Donahue is 8. And that's
I'm
all
9. Mark, I'm 9.
Oh, I'm sorry. And Christian is 9. So I have 9.
And Paul Fisher also.
Is 10. Thank you. I have 10 plus 29 is 39.
Wait a second.
Audrey, are you there? Great.
Yeah, I'm voting in favor also. So I'm 11, I think.
That's 11. Thank you. Anybody else that I missed? Okay. So I have 11 plus 29 is 40, right? So I have 40 yes.
Mark.
Yes, sir.
I was also. I don't think you.
Oh, 41, Richard Ash. Thank you, Richard. So I'm going to lower hands. Thank you. So anybody opposed? Not seeing any physical or, oh, Roberta, are you opposed or? I'm sorry, you're muted, Roberta. You're still muted, I'm sorry.
I lowered my hand, I thought.
It went back up, I guess.
Okay, yeah, let's start again with the
opposed.
The opposed, yeah.
All those opposed now, please raise your hand one way or the other. I'm not seeing any. Anybody abstaining? I see Irena Stennett is abstaining. Is that correct, Irena?
Yes.
Thank you. And one more, Madeline, are you abstaining? Madeline, are you abstaining, please?
I'm having a hard time here with my computer.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
I hear you now. What's your vote on this this resolution?
Mine was for it.
Okay, so we have 1 abstention. So it was 41 to 0 to 1 to 0. Thank you. Next one, Michelle.
Thank you. The next one is 60 West 76th Street. This is a 7-story apartment flat structure, Renaissance style. This is an application to modify the entrance, landing, and areaway and install a ramp.
And call them to set up an appointment to pursue answers.
So that's the best image we can give you.
Right.
Family educators.
Is somebody else talking?
Someone else.
I mean, I don't
Yes.
mind, but.
Talk to you about,
If everybody who's not speaking could mute themselves, please. Thank you.
So you can see by the picture that this, oh, they want to install, this is the finished product, Mark?
No, this is their proposal of, yes, that's what they, so.
All right. so everybody
That's a
can see
quick
the,
addition.
where they have, you see those two catch-alls there. That, as somebody pointed out, catches, that's for the fire escapes, which we guess were not original to the building. But if you want to put up the finished product, because this was already approved by LPC, and the committee got a really nice kudos for recommending that the ramp will be, as you're facing the building on the left, the new ramp. And we recommended that these pilings, what do you call them? They're not original
Stanchions.
to the building.
Yeah.
We recommended they get removed and are replaced by an equivalent metal structure. And what
Right.
did LPC say that they liked, that the committee suggested, Mark?
They liked it because it would open up the view of this beautiful entrance instead of having this thing kind of be a visual block. We take this vote, even though the LPC already ruled on this, we take this vote because we want to be consistent with our resolutions. But perhaps it would be wise to call the question on this.
Sure. The committee approved this 5000, non-committee 1000.
Very good. So all those in favor of this resolution?
Mark, there is an attendee hand up. Maybe you want to talk on the.
I'm sorry. Is it in the sign-up sheet or what?
No.
We're taking folks from the sign-up sheet, right?
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. So folks, please don't raise your hand because we're not going to be calling on folks based on raised hands. We're going to be calling folks based on the sign-up sheet. Thank you. So raised hands, physical raised hands, I'm 1. Doug Kleinman is 2. Louisa is 3. Shelley is 4. Richard Ash is 5. Peter Sampson is 6. Doug McGowan is 7. Next page.
Paul Fisher just voted yes.
Paul Fisher is yes. I see Bev Donahue and Ethel, so it's 7, it's 9. I don't see Shelley's hand. Lolita is 10. Robert SBA is 11. No, Robert, you can't vote twice. So I got 11. Audrey, are you with us?
Yes, 11.
I think you're actually 12.
Okay.
And I did get Ethel. Ethel, you're all set. And we've got Paul Fisher. So we've got
myself.
And Christian, thank you. What do you got? So
that would be
13.
13, yeah.
13 plus 28 is 41.
And Stephen Brown has his hand raised.
Well, Stephen Brown also has his blue hand up, so I count that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was a blue or a real, so I double-handed.
One or the other. Yeah, thank you. So it looks like 41 on this resolution. Please all lower your hands. I will actually try to do that now. Is there anybody opposed to this resolution? Seeing none. Is there anybody abstaining? Irena Stennett, are you abstaining?
Yes.
Thank you. That's 1. And I don't see any others. And then anybody ineligible for cause? I don't see anybody. So it looks like 41 to 0 to 1 to 0 again.
Thank you. The next one is 55 West 86th Street. Mark, we have photos for that?
I think so. Give me 1 second. I have to do an administrative thing here. Okay, 55 West 86th?
Yes, sir. This is a first and second floor facade renovation. Yeah, I think you're gonna like this. See the one on the left, you'll all recognize this. This was is it a Queen Anne row house? The top part remained Queen Anne in style and structure. They want to restore the storefront using steel and glass for a retail or a restaurant place space, as you can see where it says book culture. And that would emulate the 1928 facade. The building, although structured 1888, 1889, underwent some renovation in 1928. And then again, I think in the 80s, you can see on the left, see these little doorways. That's all going to be eliminated. The effect is to bring this building back to the original 1928 facade. That's about that. I think you're going to be very pleased with this renovation. The limestone is going to match that of the buildings next to it. This is all limestone, and as well as the spacing that says book culture will all be limestone. Glass on the bottom, you can see, glass on the top, and slightly recessed windows. I think it looks is very pleasing and historically appropriate to the character of the building and the district.
Very good. Any questions for anybody?
Yes, is this a commercial block? I can't picture this building.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I should have told you. This is
retail allowed on this block?
Yeah, this is 86 between Columbus and Central Park West. The north.
Yes, okay, thank you.
It's like a little bit east of Chase, Irena.
Yeah, that's right.
I know exactly where it is now. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you'll know it is very ugly area, but it looks like they're going to do a really nice job here.
Yeah, it's the first 100 feet, I believe, is allowed to be commercial.
Yeah, I think that's right, Linda?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Thank
Very
you.
good.
You're welcome.
Okay, should we call? No other questions. And Rich and Christian, there's nobody signed up to speak on this?
I just have one more question. Is
Sure.
the signage as we see it in the rendering?
It's just to let you know where the signage will go.
Yeah, that's.
Well, will it be that prominent?
It will be the subject of a subsequent application. They'll have to ask for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I don't want to rush anybody, but I want to rush everybody.
Mark, Barbara Adler says she has a question.
Okay, where is she? Can you unmute, Barbara?
I am unmuted.
Very good.
Just curious, why does it say book culture? Are they moving in there?
That's a good question. They are not. That's wishful thinking. No, they just wanted to show us that this would be a retail space.
I see. Thank you.
So they picked the most intellectual thing for the neighborhood.
Can we call the question?
Let's call the question. Let's keep it moving, guys. So all those in favor of this application, raise your hand either virtually or physically. I am 1, Doug Kleiman is 2, Christian is 3. Let's see, I have Richard Ash is 4, Shelley's 5. That's all I've got on this page. Doug McGowan is 6, Peter Sampton is 7, Ethel is 8, Bev is 9. So I've got 9. And then Audrey, where are you?
I'm in favor too, yes.
Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you. Is Richard Ash here? He was raising his hand.
Him, but Richard Robbins is a yes.
All right, so that's, where are we up to now? 11?
Richard Ash's hand?
Is 12. And then Paul Fisher?
Yes, Paul is a yes.
Yes. So that's
Mark,
12.
I'm on by phone. This is Madeline. I have to reboot my computer. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madeline.
So Madeline is, no, Richard is 13 and Madeline is 14. So I have 14 plus 29 is 42, right?
Yes.
So we have 42 in favor. Please lower your hands.
43. You said 14 plus 29?
Yeah, thank you.
15 plus 29 is
14. 14 plus 29 is
43.
43. Thank you. We have 43 in favor. Anybody opposed?
Abstain.
Who's abstaining? Louisa's abstaining. Okay, that's 1. And I don't see any others. So it looks like we have 43 to 0 to 1 to 0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep going, Michelle.
Thank you. The next application is 262 Central Park West between 86th and 87th Street. That's a 15-story building built in 1928. There's 796 windows on the primary facade. Next one, Mark. They've come to this committee from time to time with applications for window replacements, but this time they want a master plan. So they've come, like I said, they've come several times to the community board since 2000 for separate window applications. Their proposal is to replace the windows with 1/1 double hung all aluminum. The original windows were 6/6, none of which remain. There are currently 70% are 1/1, 30% single pane, tilt and turn windows in place. This was, as Susan said, finally they come to us with a master plan. It probably works out better for them also. But we voted in favor of this. They are, let me just look at my notes for a second. The single molding setbacks and brick surrounds will match the historical originals. And that's about it for this. The committee approved it. One abstention, 4-0 to 1-0. That's it. Any questions? This is to keep the plan. Now, when you have a master plan, it doesn't all happen at once, but at least you have one plan, and every time something's done, it's done the same way.
Yeah. The only thing we should add to that, Michelle, if I may, is that the original condition years and years and years ago was divided light. I think it was 6/6 windows throughout the building. And if, I'm correct that there are none left on the facade. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. 70% 1/1. I'm sorry.
Michelle, what's the current material? I mean, I know it's a hodgepodge, but have they always, when they started replacing, have they always used aluminum?
Let me see. You know,
Go ahead, Michelle.
I don't, Mark, maybe you know, I don't know, because they told me as they replace them, they'll probably keep the same material.
Yeah, all of the replacement proposals are all aluminum. My understanding is that the replacements that have been put in are most, if not all, aluminum.
Thank you.
Mark?
It's like Richard Ash's,
Yeah. I may have missed this. Is this both the south facade and the west facade?
It's the south, north, and east.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, south, north, and east. Yeah, that's correct.
East.
Yep. Okay.
All the way around the building.
Yeah, that's a good question. It shouldn't just be for one side. If it's a master
Right.
plan, it should be for the whole thing.
Yep.
Barbara has a question.
Yes. Barbara?
Go ahead, Barbara.
It seems like a real shame to put in 1/1 windows for a building that originally had 6/6. And to do a master plan for 1/1 seems to be totally devoid of any architectural detail. And then to do them in aluminum besides, just seems like a travesty to me. I can't vote in favor of this.
Well, that's what Mark said. He would have preferred 6/1 minimally.
Yeah,
And,
I agree. I agree.
Did they say, Michelle, did they say why they couldn't do that? I mean, if they're going to do a master plan, why can't they go back to the original design?
Oh, I can't remember. Somebody help me out because we did talk about that. Do you remember, Jay? I don't remember why they said they wouldn't do 6.
I remember.
First, if I can respond, filing a master plan doesn't mean that they're replacing all the windows. If, for example, the building, and it happens once in a while, though rarely, where a building will require everyone to replace their windows at the same time. That's not the case. If they were doing that, it would be easy to require the windows all represent the original historical configuration. All filing a master plan means that if anyone piecemeal applies for window replacement, it's consistent throughout the building. And what we've typically done, and what in fact LPC has done, is where there are no original windows left, and the vast majority have been changed to a particular configuration, they typically approve, unless it's for some horrendous reason, what the majority of the windows are at the current time. And in this case, it was, I think, a little over 70% were already 1/1. And as far as the material is concerned, I think it's important to understand that the fact that these are aluminum, you know, a lot of people tend to think of aluminum as cheap or aluminum siding, but aluminum is a very typical, sometimes, you know, it's clad, it's finished in an upscale way. So
I'm sorry to jump in, but I want to move this along.
yeah, so I mean, I voted yes. I think it's perfectly appropriate, and it's very likely going to be approved at LPC.
Yeah, I just want to add to the, just quickly, there was one alternative manufacturer has aluminum clad wood, just like you said, Jay. Sometimes it's not just aluminum, this is aluminum clad. I think Peter wanted to say, did you remember something, Peter?
Yeah, I recall that they already started doing some of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So several of the windows were already done. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, individually, when they came individually to the committee.
So it's just continuing a process.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Richard Ash wanted to say something?
Just quickly to follow up on Jay's comment. Nobody living on Central Park West would voluntarily install a 6-pane window. And what that'll mean is that nobody will change their windows if we insist on any replacements being 6-pane. There's a great, to me, aesthetic value in uniformity as you drive up Central Park West. And a one-on-one window is not an unattractive and doesn't stand out as an ugly departure from the building. If one-on-one windows had been available when the building was built, that's what they would have used.
Okay, I'm going to move us along here, Michelle, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thank you all. But I think we you know, it's 7:18 and I want to keep us moving. Is anybody signed up to speak on this matter?
Call the question.
Christian, has anybody signed up? No.
No. Still no one has signed up before agenda item 8.
Very good. So calling the question, we're going to take a show of hands. Please raise your hand, the blue hand if you can, and if not, the physical hand. So Mark is 1, Christian's 2, Doug Kleiman is 3, Richard Ash is 4, Shelley Fine is 5, Peter Sampson is 6. Going to the next page. Doug McGowan is 7. Lolita is 8. Do we have Paul Fisher's vote? Oh, Bev Donahue is 9. Ethel Shepard is 10.
Paul is a yes.
So Paul is 11, and I'm looking for Audrey.
Yes.
Yes. So that's 12, right?
Right.
12 plus. Is everybody else voted?
Robbins is 13.
Robbins is 13. 13 and 27 is 40. So I call it at 40. So okay, thank you. Hands down.
Thank you.
Anybody opposed?
Louisa had her hand up.
Oh, thank you. So that's 41. Thank you, Roberta. So anybody opposed? Looking for hands. I see Seema. Oh, that's a virtual. Okay. So I've got, let's see. I've got 3 virtual hands and I don't seem to have any physical hands. So 41 to 3. Anybody abstaining? I'm sorry, Irene, were you a no?
I was a no.
Okay, so that was 4 then. 41 to 4. Anybody abstaining? I don't see any abstentions and no one's ineligible for cause. So it looks like 41 to 4 to 0 to 0. Thanks. Michelle, go next, please.
Okay, thanks. The last one is 320 Riverside Drive. That's at West 104th Street. This was to exchange a previously approved door with a bay window. So the whole plan, the whole fenestration plan was approved. They had with a door, and now they want to put a bay window in there instead of the door. There'll be no fenestration changes made. The colors will remain. They call it a freedom gray. All materials, light patterns, colors, and finishes that have been previously approved will remain the same. This is minimally visible from the public thoroughfares because I don't know if I said it is on the penthouse. I didn't say that. It's a penthouse a change to the penthouse. The
Michelle,
area,
can you just say which way that faces, please? Which exposure is that?
that is
It's south.
south. No,
South. Thank you.
it's south. Wait a minute. Hold on.
It
It
says
is.
South.
Yes,
South.
sir.
Yes, it says that.
Michelle, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is this, so they're introducing a door. It's currently a window.
No, they're introducing a window. There was currently a door. A door was
Got it.
approved along with the other fenestration.
Got it.
They want to put a bay window in, which will project from the exterior wall, as bay windows typically do, but nobody but that tenant has use of that space.
Great. Any other questions? Ira, do you have your hand up for a question? Nope. Okay. Looks like Ira's voting already.
Call the question.
Okay. So all in favor of this resolution, please raise your hand. So Mark is 1, Christian's 2, Doug Kleiman is 3, Peter Sampton is 4, Richard Ash 5, Shelley Fine 6, and Louisa is 7.
Robbins 8.
Robbins is 8.
Audrey, 9.
Audrey is 9. Doug McGowan is 10. Lolita is 11. Bev Donahue is 12. And I don't see any more. Whoops.
Paul
Nope.
Fisher votes yes.
And Paul Fisher is 13. Oh, and Ethel Sheffer is 14. Thank you.
Yeah.
14 plus 30 is 44. So we have 44 in favor. Hands down, please. Hands down, please. Anybody opposed? Not seeing anybody. Whoops. Ken is opposed. Okay.
No.
Okay. So nobody opposed. Anybody abstaining? Jay, are you opposed? No. Okay. And nobody's abstaining. So it looks like 44 to 0 to 0 to 0. Is that right? Okay. That's
All right.
that's where
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for help with those resolutions. And
Thank
just,
you all.
yeah,
Next
thank you.
is the Crosstown Bike Lane on 72nd Street Transportation Committee. I'm not sure if it's Howard or Andrew.
I'll do it. So Andrew and I have only one resolution this evening, and it's the 72nd Street. I don't like to think of it as solely a bike lane resolution. 72nd Street, I'm there all the time. It's really a mess. There's a wall of double parked cars on each side, and I think it needs to be rethought. There are a lot of restaurants there and a lot of restaurants that are suffering. So what we discussed with the Transportation Committee was there are very good and plentiful north-south bike lanes. Central Park West now, Columbus, Amsterdam, but there really isn't a good east-west route. And we thought 72nd Street, given its width and given how underutilized it is, would be a perfect place to put in something different. The resolution calls for a plan. It doesn't call for a specific lane, and we didn't discuss the specifics at the committee, and the resolution doesn't have specifics. It's calling for the DOT and their experts to come up with something that will make the street a better street, make it safer, make it more pleasant, absolutely have a protected bike lane. It calls for pedestrian improvements. It calls for a plan calls for them to use their imagination to come up with a plan to improve the street, and of course, connect these northwest bike lanes, also connecting Central Park, which has the loop, and Riverside Drive, which has the Hudson River bikeway. So this will be an important connector, and we'd like to see what the DOT can come up with. My suspicion, we're not going to hear back from them very quickly because we all know why, but it's just to get the ball started and to try to improve the street. That's it. Oh, it passed in the committee 11-0 to 1. 1 abstention, 11 in favor. Questions, comments, criticisms?
Can we get the resolution up on the screen?
Someone other than I is going to have to figure out how to do that.
I have a question, Howard. I have 2 questions actually.
Sure.
The first is, you said that it's that
Thank you.
the thoroughfare is not heavily used, but there's always double parked cars there, and it's also a bus route. So could you clarify that?
Oh, what it is there's a lot of deliveries there. When I say heavily used, there's not a lot of moving traffic. I often drive there to get on the Henry Hudson Parkway, and there are a lot of cars. There are a few cars in the moving lane, but there are always cars in the lane to the left. In other words, the lane beside the parking lane. So paradoxically, it's both heavily used for deliveries, but not heavily used for moving traffic. That's what I meant.
Okay. My second question, I spent a lot of time on 72nd. So when you said that, I was like, what? And then my second question is, I know that you want DOT to use their engineering and creativity, but are you thinking, like, what was the committee thinking in terms of where the bike lane would go when there's bus stops? I'm just trying to understand what you guys are envisioning.
I will tell you candidly, I have absolutely no clue.
Okay.
I'm calling on people who have a lot more expertise than I do to figure it out. I just think the street can be improved, and I'd like to see, I think we all should like to see what they can come up with.
Okay.
Howard, can I make a comment?
Well,
Absolutely. Is Mark, are you managing the queue of questions?
Howard, I had my hand up first, I think.
Okay.
Howard, that's fine with me. Let's make sure we just get to everybody, and I'm just going to renew my imploring that we move this meeting along.
Okay.
But not at the expense of not having a full discussion. Okay. But if everybody could take a second to gather their thoughts and be ready to speak when it's your turn, that'll move us along faster too. Okay.
Okay. And I also see we have a lot of comments from the community. So we have a lot. Okay. We have Roberta and Clary.
May I go first?
Sure.
I should say, are you calling on me?
You go.
Thank you, Howard. So I live on 72nd Street. There is a lot going on there. It's not an easy street to control no matter what you do. My husband is a cyclist. He cycles across 72nd Street. I have personally always supported dedicated bike lanes. And the concept on its face sounds like a good idea to ask for a proposal. My understanding, and Howard, tell me if I'm wrong, is this is asking for a proposal. It is not asking for a bike lane. Is that right?
That is 100% correct.
Okay.
And you said it accurately and succinctly.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that. What I want to focus on just for a moment as we continue, as we will over some months probably, to see what comes out of this, is the issue of how you get to the Greenway. Because unlike other dedicated cycle lanes, this one, to get from Central Park to get to the Greenway and Riverside Park, one way or another has to get through Riverside Park, which is, as we know, a very, very heavily used park by many, many pedestrians and others. So I'm going to try to do this really simply. If you arrive at Riverside Drive and Riverside Park, if you entered the park there, you have a big circle with Eleanor Roosevelt statue. Then you have a very narrow shared path that has many, many pedestrians with all sorts of baby carriages and et cetera. You go by a dog run that's heavily used. You then go through a tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, you either have a very long, heavy staircase that goes down. So cyclists obviously can't do that. They'd be killed. Or you have a blind turn with an extreme right-hand blind turn down a very, very steep pedestrian ramp that then crosses all the pedestrians who are avoiding or crossing the Rosenthal bypass. So getting to the Greenway, and the resolution asks for a safe way for cyclists to get to the Greenway, but gotta be safe for the pedestrians too. I assume that was just an error, that you're not asking for safety for everybody. Anyway, so that is not a way that cyclists can get to the Greenway. There are two other ways, but I want to point out that there are some problems with both of them. The logical and only way.
Can I just interject, Clary, that
what?
we specifically did not discuss these logistics in the
Yeah,
committee.
I know, but I think as people are thinking about this, Howard, it's important to understand, because the issue is how do you, is safe way for everybody to get to the Greenway. And I'm not going to be long, but I just want to explain something. The phase 5 of Riverside Park, which is supposedly opening imminently, but still waiting for some Con Ed work, will have a fabulous feature at 66th Street, which is a dedicated bike ramp from Riverside Boulevard that will go down to the Greenway. That is the obvious way to send cyclist traffic if this bike ramp is done. I mean, if the bike lane is done. That's the way that bike traffic should get safely to the Greenway. But we still don't know, even though we're told it's imminent, we still don't know when that ramp is going to open. The second way is to go north and go on the currently designated bike route across 79th Street. This would be particularly good, north on Riverside Drive. I'll be finished in a moment, Howard. To go north on Riverside Drive across the currently designated route onto the Greenway, particularly for people going north. That's the other half of the perfect solution. But when the rotunda is under renovation, which we're told will start sometime soon and last for several years, that route will be unavailable. And I'm saying this now because I think when people think about a bike lane that terminates at Riverside Park, they have to have at least some understanding about what happens next to get those cyclists safely down to the Greenway, so they are not, and absolutely are not, cruising along this very narrow path with all the perils I described. So that's the background that I wanted people to understand, even though I'm glad that you've confirmed we're not asking for the bike lane, we're asking for a proposal. Thanks for letting me speak, Howard.
I'm going to speak for 30 seconds, and I think it may save time in the long run. I think a committee, and Clara, I would urge you to join, to meet with DOT once they've had a few months to mull this over and help them shape their proposal would be very helpful.
I'll be happy to do that. Thank you,
great.
Howard.
Thank you.
Howard, it's my turn, right?
It's Roberta's turn.
So, to answer two questions, first of all, at 70th Street, where there's a path similar to the 72nd Street, there's a path and a staircase. Cyclists are told to dismount and walk their bikes up or down the path. And that has been working very well. To answer Arena's question, the DOT is very good about figuring out how buses can have their bus stops and bikes can go through. If you look at CPW, you'll see it. I think this is an excellent resolution, and I've taken less than a minute.
Thank you.
Actually, and I wish the M72 bus was more frequent, but it isn't.
I'm just going to go down the list. So why don't I'll call him. I figured out how to do this. Susan Schwartz is next.
Wow. Well, thank you, Howard. I'm excited. So my concern here is that we would be spending any more money on bike lanes. The New York City budget deficit right now is $9 billion. The MTA projects a 2-year budget deficit of $14.3 billion. The CARES Act would only provide $4 billion to cover that. And Andrew, please correct me, I'm sure I'm wrong here. The MTA has requested $12 billion in additional federal funds, and we're gonna have to cut the subway and bus service by 40% if we get no federal aid forthcoming. So I'm concerned that what seemed like maybe a good investment of $1.7 billion to provide 250 miles of protected bike lanes before the pandemic and before the city's tax base fell apart. I'm concerned that we'd be spending any money on this. Furthermore, wrapping up here, I live at 71st Street, as we all know, and I'm on 72nd Street almost as much as Arena, perhaps. And that street is not, as it says in the resolution here, a low traffic street with 6 lanes consisting of curbside parking, blah, blah, blah. Right now, it's got restaurants burgeoning out. The bus goes back and forth. And frankly, I think the way that the bus is being handled on Central Park West is terrifying. The bus pulls over directly to the curb, and the bicyclists are in danger on Central Park West because the bus is pulling into the curb and I don't know where they're supposed to go. So to have that same model used on 72nd Street is just terrifying to me. So my recommendation is to not vote on this right now and to just set it aside and say, listen, in a year from now, we can come back and talk about it. But right now, this should not be our priority when the MTA is in such free fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I actually agree with most of what you said. I think a rethinking is in order. I think this is just, and I am way up there in concerns with the budget, but I think that this is a very small actual expenditure. My feeling and the committee's feeling is let's see what they come up with. Jeanette Rouse.
Yes, thank you. I think you mentioned in the beginning that this was more than just looking at a bike lane. What we really need to ask for is for DOT to do a complete streets analysis of 72nd Street and frankly also other crosstown streets. A complete street approach looks at the best way for the bus to move, whether it's bus lanes, bike lanes, pedestrians, vehicles, parking. It looks at all the modes of moving them east to west on the street. And so I'd really recommend that if we're asking DOT to invest resources in this, we have them do it comprehensively rather than just looking at one mode of transportation to move this lane, because it's, as the comments you've heard, it gets very complicated when you get to the details.
Thanks, Jeanette. It's ironic you went after Susan because Susan suggested the budget and these other concerns that we don't do anything right now, and you're suggesting we look at everything right now. The committee decided for a sort of interim, on a middle way approach of looking just at 72nd. So,
well, I think if you're going to look at it, you should look at everything. But I think Susan's comment made a lot of sense. As is this the priority right now? And it may be because there's so many people who are trying to walk now to work, or trying to take the bus, or trying to take a bike instead of the subway. But
let's call for pedestrian improvement and a call for an essential link. I know we need to move it. Naj Rosenberg.
Howard, I assume you're going to call on everybody that has their hand up.
Hands raised is going to be called on, but it's being called on in order. Naj Rosenberg.
I don't know what the
Okay, the next one, Jay, you're next.
I just have an observation with respect in response to Clary's question, and you've said it a couple of times that this is not a resolution for a physically protected crosstown bike lane, but the resolution says that Community Board 7 is seeking a proposal for, quote, a physically protected two-way bike lane or lanes on West 72nd that would run between Central Park West and Riverside Drive. So how is this not a request for a proposal for a physically
It's a request for a proposal, but
two-way
it's not
bike
a
lane?
request for them to install a bike lane. I wanted to make that very clear. We're asking for them, and I want everyone to understand this, and the resolution clearly says it, for them to come back to us with a proposal. We are not asking them to install a bike lane by this proposal.
Yeah, but you're asking for a proposal
Absolutely.
for a physically protected two-way bike lane.
Yes, absolutely. But we're asking for a proposal, not for the implementation of a bike lane. We're asking for a proposal that would come back to us, that we could look, give input, and see what works for the community.
And once they do that, it's conceivable that we can ask DOT to look into all of the things that all of you have raised this evening.
Yeah, and hopefully it won't be such a big process because people like Clary will have input, and hopefully you will too, Jay, and make it a proposal that the board can go for. Who's next? Steve Brown.
Hey, okay, great. So just a couple points. One, to be clear, I'm going to support this measure. I'm a bicyclist and I support most of the bike lanes, or all the bike lanes. I will admit that I sort of agree with Susan's points as well, but I'm going to move forward. I just wanted to use this as a few minutes just to make, or less than a minute, to make a quick point of something that I was about to write an email to, and that is, as we make more bike lanes and as we do this, and again, I'm in favor of this, there are some situations or challenges, and I've been experiencing a very bad challenge lately, and it's become exacerbated by a couple recent things. One is with the outdoor seating, which is abutted right next to the bike lanes. And number two, with all these motorized bikes, I can only tell you that in my experience when I'm biking, I'm getting 15 to 20 bikes going the wrong way in a very hazardous way. And I'm not asking, I'm gonna send an email to you guys, but I hope that we can come up with a positive way, because it's always conflictual when this comes up. But I remember one of the members once said that once you get enough bikes, there should be kind of a herd mentality. We'll all police ourselves. Well, can we get that going? You know, and if there's a way to bring groups together, if there's a campaign we can do. I know a lot of these are delivery guys. I don't mean to demonize delivery guys. I'm just telling you factually what I'm saying, but perhaps we can send letters and say, guys, please encourage people to do this. But I had to pull over. I'm 6'3", 220. I got ran off the road twice. I had to pull over 5 times, and I took the time to talk to waitresses. And everyone has said that they literally almost every day get almost run over because they only look the one way because they're used to saying it. So I'll end here. I'm hoping we can address this. I don't mean to bring up the whole thing. I'm not asking for more tickets, but I'm telling you that I believe that this is an issue, and I hope in a positive way we can come up with something. That I think it's an aberrant behavior. I'm all for biking, and I just want to bike better because I consider myself a bikeless. So I'll follow up with some emails to you guys.
I agree completely, Steve. And hopefully a network will encourage people to use it. By forcing people into the street, maybe you're encouraging that behavior. I don't know, but hopefully that'll happen. Ken. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, to one of Stephen's concerns, this is a two-way bike lane, unlike the bike lane on Amsterdam or Columbus. So I would not expect people going the wrong way to be an issue. Or what we're asking for is a proposal for a two-way bike lane. The DOT is not going to spend money that they don't have. But we are living in a time when bicycling is exploding. City bike usage, despite the fact that Midtown is essentially shut down, has increased year to year since last July. So that's an indication of how much it's gone up. And this project would be a relatively small investment compared to the enormous benefit of connecting 2 major bicycle thoroughfares. So we should support it.
So Howard, Louisa had her hand up, and then Clary already spoke, but you may want to call on her again.
Okay, Louisa, I don't see your hand, but go ahead.
No, she was a physical hand. That's why I'm mentioning it.
Can I, my hand was up.
I didn't see you, but we got to move this along, guys. So please, let's keep going.
Ethel's hand was up for some time.
Okay, why don't we do Louisa and then Ethel? And then Mark, it's your call whether community board members get to speak twice or how to go from there.
Well, let's hear Louisa and Ethel first.
Okay. And then Rich.
Oh, okay, thanks. Guys, we got to move, let's go.
Ethel, Rich.
Is it, okay, thank you. This has been a very enlightening discussion and one that's been very varied. It would have been better if this kind of discussion had taken place at the committee. At this point, there is one thing that is clear, although the co-chair of the committee has sometimes made comments that make me think perhaps it's not clear, though that may not be his intention. This is supposed to be a resolution to request DOT to begin to investigate a proposal to do what? To improve what? Safety? Is it to implement a bike lane? The chair said not a bike lane, but something grander or something different that deals with the specific concerns that almost everybody has enunciated. I would earnestly suggest that the resolution be simplified or that we vote on it with the following addition, whether we say proposal or not, but say that we ask DOT to launch a proposal to investigate the need and the design of a bike lane, add to it if you like, and then state that in initiating the proposal, that there be a specific timeline and participation and input by members of the community board to DOT as it is studying the proposal. All the other details, which are terrific and interesting, cannot be put into this, and at the same time, we need to make it clear. You're asking for a proposal, and I add, with the continuing comment and participation of the committee for input to DOT, and not all the rest of it enlightening as it is now.
Okay, just for
Thank
some
you.
information, at the committee, we extensively discussed this, and we thought several.
It hasn't come out that way. Thank you.
Were important in the proposal, and one was a bike lane, and two were pedestrian improvements. That's the conclusion of the committee, and that's what's reflected in the resolution. Louisa, you're up.
Okay, I agree with Susan that we are in a very difficult financial situation, and we should be very, very careful about what we're asking for, what we need and what we want, two different things. I also agree with Jeanette. We don't want to go in and ask for one small thing and then go back and say, well, we want more and more and more. It's better to go in and ask for a master plan study of the entire street and all the aspects of the street, including a bikeway. But, you know, it's very hard to add later and say, oh, we just thought of it, whatever. It doesn't work that way in all my experience. Very specific of what we want. So maybe we start a little bigger and then see what they come up with and work with them. But one of my questions is, how long does the DOT take to come up with these design plans?
I don't know, but I assume we'll find out if we pass the resolution. Again, our goal was to ask for a modest, there was a strong feeling there needed to be something. Crosstown, 72nd Street made sense. Other than that, we're deferring to the DOT to come up with a plan. We wanted to we're very cognizant of the budgetary realities. So we wanted to ask for something that we deemed important and was very specific.
All right, guys.
Understood, but I think that we
Louisa,
have
I'm
to be
sorry, we're
careful
gonna have to
about
move
what
this.
we asked for.
Okay, Rich Robbins is next.
Yeah, three quick points. One is I agree with Steve. People know I have concerns about over-enforcement of bikes, but two essential areas that need to be enforced are cycling the wrong way and cycling on streets. It's a separate issue from this resolution. Apart from that, having viable two-way bike lanes should allow cyclists to ride legally. It's a separate issue for us to work on wrong way and sidewalk cyclists. And I see that as also a BCI issue because I think many are delivery cyclists. I've been calling for years for a joint transportation BCI meeting to talk about delivery cyclists, but that's a separate issue. In terms of the comments about cost, for one, this is a more important issue because of COVID. As Ken says, there are many more people biking, including school children. My daughter's middle school is putting up extra racks for kids to be able to ride to school. We need to make sure that everyone, and especially kids, are able to ride safely. And for those who don't know, the DOT is a city agency, the MTA is a state agency. So saying that DOT spending a small amount of money on bike lanes is taking money from the MTA is not the case. They're different entities funding them.
Okay.
And finally, to Jay's question about, we're asking for a proposal that we would then vote on. If we don't like it, we can vote it down. That's the difference between asking for a proposal and asking for a bike lane. That's all I got.
Okay, so with all possible apologies to Clary, we're not going to call on people twice. I'm sorry. It's 7:50 and we have 8 people signed up to speak from the community. So let's go immediately. Help me, please, to get to Daniel Friedman, followed by Joe R. Are we not unmuted? Can we get Joe R?
Who's doing the timing?
Doug Kleiman.
Okay, Mark Freeman should be able to talk now.
Okay, thank you.
Hello? Hold on, sir. Hold on 1 second. You're going to have a minute and a half. I'm going to give you a warning in a minute, which is 30 seconds to wrap. Okay? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Joe. I live on the Upper West Side. I'll be very brief. I really just want to say I approve of the 72nd Street bike lane, or whatever you want to call it, or the proposal for it. There's been over 2,000 crashes on 72nd Street alone since the city started keeping track. 4 people have been killed. Hundreds more have been injured. Proposals like this are just common sense solutions that can save lives, keep people from getting injured, and ultimately the city will be better for it. I don't think cost should be as much of a concern as just making sure that these agenda items are like actually capitalized upon and are on people's minds. That's all I want to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's go to, did we get Daniel Friedman?
I think so.
Everybody, please mute if you're not speaking.
Okay. Well, I think this piecemeal approach to 72nd Street is kind of a road to ruin. I'll cite as an example the 50 years I've noticed the devolution of 96th Street, where more and more infrastructure was put on that street until it became unusable. And I think this is a case where bike lanes will create enough gridlock so that 72nd Street will be able to join 96th Street in being dysfunctional. And this whole idea of deferring to DOT as having the correct answer, we haven't seen that in the past. And you assume that they're going to make it safe and efficient for the buses, yet the buses do not ride efficiently crosstown. And then you assume that they're going to spend money intelligently, and yet we don't see that. So it's actually this committee's responsibility to come up with a resolution that works, not to defer to say, we want an opinion, but at the end of the day, we want a protected bike lane. So give it to us, and we're going to excuse how you spend your money, how the buses run, and the safety issues involved. I don't see it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. We're going next to Hindi Schachter. You should be unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Hindi Schachter. I'm a senior citizen cyclist. I'm also on the steering committee of Families for Safe Streets. I cycle West 72nd Street, and it is not safe in its current configuration. Unsafe streets lead to unnecessary deaths. I would like to prevent mine and that of many other cyclists. When I hear people say we don't have the money for a simple bike lane that can save lives, I think, oh no, Central Park West, Madison Leiden all over again. We get very excited after the death. No, this time let's do it in the right chronological order. Let's get the protected bike lane where we need it before the death.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Justin Gundlach, please.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I've been biking in cities for about 10 years, in 2 cities, 5 years here in New York. I commute. I'm going to be commuting with my toddler now that we're not using the subway as much. In the last 2-3 weeks, I've had my spouse and multiple different friends ask me to chaperone them around the city to try to learn how to bike safely. These are people who are eager to do it, and to do it for the purpose of commuting, not just as recreation. A two-way bike lane, for reasons that many have already pointed out, is, I think, a significantly different piece of infrastructure than a one-way lane. As Howard mentioned, there is no crosstown artery currently available in this part of the city. This would make an enormous difference and would be extremely valuable. To the point about cost, I would say this, I'm not going to present numbers or anything, but this is the chance to push the city to lay down bike lanes. That has been slow. It's been a shame that it's been slow. But if community groups like this can make the point, the city, I think, will hear them. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's go to Nicole Painter, who's the Executive Director of the Columbus Avenue Business Improvement District.
Thank you. The Columbus Avenue Business Improvement District fully supports this resolution asking for a plan for a protected bike lane along 72nd Street and an overall safer 72nd Street. The Columbus Avenue bike lane has been a valuable and much used link to Columbus Avenue and the Upper West Side from other parts of the city. We believe a protective bike lane on 72nd Street will strengthen the web, tying Central Park, the Hudson River Greenway, and the East Side to Columbus Avenue stores, restaurants, and museums. The protected bike lane and safer 72nd Street will make our area more accessible to local residents, shoppers, and eventually tourists. This increased foot and bike traffic will help our local merchants and small business owners who are struggling now more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's go to Lisa. I'm sorry, that's Nicole. We're going to go next to Lisa Orman. Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Orman, Director of Streetopia Upper West Side. As people have said, we're in the midst of a bike boom. Bike stores have sold out, even with no school in session, and many people working from home. City bike rides are at all-time highs. Kids are learning to bike, and I know of many who have purchased bikes in the hopes of riding to school, including my 12-year-old. And there's currently not one way to safely cross the Upper West Side in a protected lane. This excludes many people from using a bike to get around town, to drop kids at school, or bike to work. In May, our campaign surveyed Upper West Siders and asked about their commuting patterns and habits. By far, the biggest mode shift was from subway use to bike use. And not surprising to us, 72nd Street was the most popular crosstown street where people wanted a protected bike lane. If we're talking about money, every dollar spent on a bike lane returns $24 in healthcare savings, pollution, and traffic. Bike lanes bring business, as Nicole just said, tourists, and a neighborhood where people want to live. I think we can't afford not to invest in our streets like this. The city is expanding their crosstown corridors in a quest to create an actual network of bike lanes. Car lanes don't suddenly stop, but bike lanes do. Protected bike lanes are good for business, they're good for the environment, but most importantly, protected bike lanes protect people, all people. Let's keep building a neighborhood that protects kids, seniors, and everyone in between. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's keep going to Andrew Rosenthal.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. Most people have made some of the points I wanted to make. I wanted to address two things. One is bike lanes mean fewer pedestrian injuries. There's a lot of talk all the time when we talk about bike lanes and people about pedestrians almost getting hit or even getting hit. But if you look at the data, pedestrians are safer when there's a bike lane, one. Two, I personally collected hundreds and hundreds of signatures on petitions in support of a West 72nd Street bike lane. So there is a tremendous amount of community support for this. People were literally taking the clipboard out of my hands as I was passing it down the line. So please vote yes on this resolution.
Very good. Thank you. And our last speaker is Ellen Azarin. Ellen, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ellen Azarin, and I live on West 79th Street, and I'm a cyclist, and I support this resolution. It may not be perfect, but I think it is shameful that on the Upper West Side, we do not have a protected crosstown bike lane. So even, and to the point about we should take a look at the whole picture, we'll never get anything done. I think this is a start. It's the most obvious place to start. And I wanted to add the one point that hasn't been made about 72nd Street is that the cyclists who are coming out of the park at 72nd Street add to bike traffic on 72nd Street, and they need some place to go that's safe. So let's start here. I mean, it's really time to accept that bicycling is with us. It has exploded. We need to deal with it. This isn't perfect. It's just a beginning, but let's get started.
Thank you very much. Seeing no more public hands, and we've already gone through our board, I think it's time to call the question unless there's a change.
Call the question.
Unless there's a change to the resolution, let's go. This one, we're going to take a roll call vote. So if my secretary is ready, I'm going to call the names. Please unmute in advance, and I will call your name. Please tell me yes, no, abstain, or for cause. Barbara Adler.
Yes.
Thank you. Jay Adolph.
No.
Thank you. Andrew Albert.
Yes.
Thank you. Linda Alexander.
Yes.
Thank you. Rosa Arenas. She had a committee meeting, a strike vote, so she may not be with us. Richard Ash. Richard Ash. second call.
Mark, yes.
Thank you, Richard. Stephen Brown.
Yes.
Thank you. Elizabeth Caputo. Elizabeth, are you with us? I'll come back. Cindy Cardinal.
Yes.
Thank you. Josh Cohen.
Yes.
Thanks. Christian Cordova.
Yes.
Thanks. Ken Coughlin.
Yes.
Thank you. Paige Cowley.
Yes.
Thank you. Louisa Craddock.
Yes.
Thank you. Catherine DeLazaro.
Yes.
Thank you. Mark Diller votes yes. Bev Donahue.
Yes.
Robert SBA.
Yes.
Thank you. Lolita Farron.
Yes.
Thank you. Shelley Fine.
Yes.
Thanks. Paul Fisher, do you want to put yours in the chat?
Yes, it's a yes.
He's a yes. Thank you. Julian Giordano.
Yes.
Thanks. Amy Hyman.
Yes.
Thank you. Madeline Innocent.
Yes.
Thanks. Audrey Isaacs.
Yes.
Kay Carpin.
Yes.
Thanks. Natasha Kasmi. We'll come back. Doug Kleiman.
Yes.
Thank you. Blanche Lawton. We'll come back. Sarah Lind.
Yes.
Doug McGowan.
No.
Thank you. Courtney Clark Matakis.
I like Doug's idea, but I'm going to go with yes, given the lack of that friendly amendment.
So yes, okay.
Yeah.
Ira Michnick.
Yes.
Clary Newell.
No.
Thank you. William Ortiz.
Yes.
Thanks. Michelle Parker.
No.
Thank you. Jeanette Roush.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, abstain. Thank you. Seema, ready.
Yes.
Thanks. Andrew Ridgey.
Yes.
Rich Robbins.
Yes.
Thank you. Madge Rosenberg.
Yes.
Melissa Rosenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. Peter Sampton.
Yes.
Thank you. Meg Schmidt is on leave. Susan Schwartz.
No.
Thank you. Roberta Seamer.
Yes.
Ethel Sheffer. Ethel, are you with us? We'll come back. Polly Spain. I think Polly had to leave for a union vote. Irena Stennett.
No.
Thank you. And Howard Yaris.
Yes.
The ones I missed. Polly Spain, second call. Ethel Sheffer, second call. Ethel, did you guess a vote? Did we lose Ethel?
Ethel says yes.
Thank you. Second call on Rosa Arenas.
She's not here.
I didn't think so. And second call on Elizabeth Caputo. Is it Elizabeth? I don't see Elizabeth.
She's not here.
Okay. The resolution obviously carries 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 34, 36, 37. I've got 37 in favor. Looks like one.
I had 6 no, 1 abstain.
Let's go with that.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All right. And the last resolution is going to be from Parks and Environment. Clary and Elizabeth, I assume it's Clary.
I don't know whether Elizabeth is back, but I'll start, and in any event, I was the primary author of this one. So what this is about is and I'll give a little bit of background and then turn to speakers, Gail Brewer, when she was a member of the city council, did us park users, and we're all park users, an enormous service back about 10 years ago by getting an amendment in the city council to the New York City Clean Air Act that prohibited smoking in parks. In order to get the votes of some of her co-council members, as she very kindly came to our committee meeting and explained to us, she needed to build in some exceptions that have remained in the law ever since, although since that no smoking in parks law was passed, it has been extended to vaping as well as other tobacco products, which is how it reads. So we now have enormous use of our parks. We have enormously more concern about secondhand smoke than we did. The COVID situation has just made our parks even more crowded. We've had tons of complaints about, I should say that the three exceptions are sidewalks around the edges of parks, parking lots in parks, and what I will call medians, which is essentially something like the Broadway Mall, the pedestrian parts of the Broadway malls. So while I was the author of this, and this is initiated by our committee, it was really brought to our attention. And I want to thank Janice Horowitz, a member of the community, who really pushed for us to put it on our agenda. Mark, I just want to say before we continue, Janice and two other members of the community who represent very broad bases in the community contacted me before this meeting and said they want to speak, and I assured them that we would call on them. I don't know one way or another whether they've done this sign-up thing. I didn't know about it until this meeting. I do want to—
They have. We're all set. We're in the process of calling on them. Please just get to your resolution, and then we'll call on them.
Okay. So what the resolution does is it asks the city council to pass an amendment to the Clean Air Act that would eliminate the exceptions to the no smoking law in parks, so that essentially parks would be entirely smoke-free. That's the shortest way to say it. I'd like to call on Janice Horowitz and two other members but Janice first, two other members of the public, and then of course we'll hear from board members.
Janice should be unmuted. Janice, go ahead.
No?
You're on, Janice.
Go ahead, Janice. Yes, please.
Maybe, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Keep going, please.
Thank you, Clary. So it's actually, it's kind of a simple thing, but I'll just start with everybody agrees about the dangers of secondhand smoke. And that's why Gail Brewer pushed to have it banned in our parkland. And it's banned in offices and restaurants and outside in front of office buildings. And as Clary said, when the ban was created, and it was quite some time ago, a decade ago, there were these exemptions, these exceptions made for the part of the park that runs around the edges with benches.
Janice, you need to speak up and move closer to your mic.
Oh, okay. So as Clary said, when this ban, this decade-old ban was created, there were these exemptions made for the parkland that runs along the edges of the park where people have to sit on benches. And we all know that.
Janice, you need to speak closer to your mic.
Okay. Is that better? I'm like in the mic now. Is that better?
A little.
Oh. Is this, maybe I'm going to use my husband's computer. Let me take that one. No? All right. I hope you guys can hear me. How's that?
That's better. Just keep going, Janice, but stay close to the mic.
We're very short on time, so we need you to move along, please.
So these edges are called park perimeters. Okay, so as people have mentioned, this happens to be the part of the park that's being used now more than ever. The whole park is. So here's why it's critical now in the time of COVID to close up, get rid of those exemptions and have smoking banned on all of parkland. And it's very simple. In order to smoke, smokers need to remove their masks. And that creates a COVID risk infection for the rest of us, meaning our senior neighbors who may not make their way into the parkland that's in the park, moms with strollers who sit on those benches, a kid, anybody who wants to enjoy that part of the park is being exposed for long stretches of time to people without masks. So as a result, this area, which is supposed to be a less risky respite,
Please wrap up.
okay, is posing a greater risk to the neighborhood. And I really want to make an important point, and has become a kind of de facto designated smoking area. But the other big point that I want to make is secondhand smoke poses health problems, as we all know. But there's one other problem that's paramount in the time of COVID, and that is secondhand smoke makes the lung of the non-smoker more vulnerable to viral infections. This is something that's been known for decades. So these days, the virus to be concerned about is, of course, COVID.
So Ms. Horowitz, I'm sorry, we're going to have to move on. Thank you very much. That was over 2 minutes.
All right, so next I want to call on Ellen Kessler of the West 80s Neighborhood Association, and then following her, Rachel Adrico of the Montessori School. Ellen, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for holding this meeting and inviting me to speak. The West 80s Neighborhood Association totally supports this. We think it's very important to do right now. There's so little we can do against COVID, and this is something, it's a small thing, but it's an important one. People are going to parks in order to breathe fresh air, yet they have to run the gauntlet of cigarette smoke, possibly contaminated with the coronavirus. That's not good. And if this committee can do something to stop it, we applaud it. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Next
you.
one.
Next will be Rachel Adrico, and then we'll see who else. Rachel from the Montessori School. Rachel, you with us? Rachel Adrico?
I'm here. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, okay, good.
All right. Good evening, Community Board 7. Thank you for my time. I'm Rachel Adrico, head of school at Metropolitan Montessori School. Our building is located on 85th Street between West End and Riverside. We serve students just under 3 years old through 6th grade. Next Wednesday, September 9th, we will reopen our school to all families. This reopening is based on months of research, analysis, policy setting, and heavy investment in our facilities to ensure that we minimize the possibility of transmissions as much as possible. During a normal year, our 1st through 6th graders travel to Riverside Park daily for recess. Classes crossed at the corner of 85th and Riverside. Then they travel along the perimeter of Riverside Park until usually turning off toward River Run Playground at 83rd. This year, given the clear difference in transmission rates indoors versus outdoors, we plan to be in Riverside Park far more often. Our teachers will be leading classes on the periphery of Riverside several times a day. We hope that these arteries are safe places where people socially distance and wear masks. Smoking cigarettes obviously prevents people from wearing masks. As a head of school, my most important job is to keep students safe, and I believe that eliminating smoking on park perimeters will be an important safety measure this year. My hope is that you pass a swift resolution to support the ban on smoking in public perimeters of the parks. Thank you so much, Community Board 7.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm going to just turn to other people who want to speak. I just want to say one thing. We know that Mark Levine, Councilmember Mark Levine, who's head of, I believe, head of the Health Committee in the council, is already interested in introducing legislation that of the type that we've asked for. But of course, we haven't asked for it until the board makes its decision tonight. So who else wants to speak? I am not, I guess I don't even control this. Okay, let me go back to panelists.
Sorry, there was one more member of the public who wanted to speak.
Thanks, Rich.
Who is Andrea Trupin, and she's able to unmute herself.
Well, let's take Andrea first and then go to board members, if that's all right with you, Mark.
Yes, please, let's go.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Just quickly, I want to say that I support very strongly this resolution to ban smoking on the perimeter of parks, in addition to the other areas that were mentioned, like parking lots. I just wanted to ask, however, if there's been any thought given to how this rule or law, whatever it's going to be, can be enforced, because there are two things I'm concerned about. One is increased conflict between, local residents, people telling people they're not allowed to smoke, arguments, et cetera. And the second thing is a reluctance to send people into contact with the police in ways that could be detrimental to them in their lives, depending on who they are and what their situation is. So while I'm very much in favor of this new rule, and I really, really support it, I feel the same way everybody else does about the secondhand smoke and the COVID, et cetera, I'm very concerned about the practicality of how it might be enforced, and I think it needs to be thought about. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Okay, a quick answer to that. We talked about at the committee meeting, enforcement is always an issue, but having a uniform rule of no smoking in parks, period, as combined with another thing we're asking for, which is better signage. There's virtually no signage at Riverside Park, maybe zero, and in other parks should at least help to make everybody understand the rules. And maybe
Can we
help
call the question?
We have four hands up, but
I'd like to speak.
Yeah, we have
All right.
people who want to speak.
Guys, it's 8:15.
Okay.
It's 8:15. I'm going to ask
We've
my
got
board
Doug
members to do
McGowan
the same.
first.
I'm going to ask my board members to do the same thing as the public, please. No more than 2 minutes. Let's go.
I thought it was.
Thanks, Claire. This is Doug. If I recall correctly, we held 2 votes during our committee meeting, one for the basic resolution and another specific to the call out for marijuana. And if I recall correctly, I personally voted no on the marijuana inclusion. And I'm wondering if that's your recollection of the vote and if there is an opportunity to pull that marijuana inclusion out of the resolution as part of a friendly amendment.
I guess I have to respond. Doug, yes, we did have a separate vote because a couple of committee members did not want the part of the resolution that asked to have, and this is just with regard to smoke. It's not regard to in the park, not with regard to marijuana use or brownies or anywhere else or in your house or on the streets. It's all just smoke in the park. There were a couple of board members or committee members who voted against that part of the resolution, but the majority of committee members wanted that in, and so it is part of the proposed resolution, which makes it very simple. The resolution is no smoking of anything in our parks, period, if the city council will pass that. So that's where it ended up. I think that answers your question. One other quick thing, although he's not with us tonight, Dan Garodnick, who is the executive CEO of the Riverside Park Conservancy, has authorized us to say that the Riverside Park Conservancy supports the smoking ban particularly on the sidewalks around the park. Okay, next, we've got Ken Coughlin, Melissa Rosenberg, Arena Stennett.
Okay, I totally support the tobacco part of this, but I don't understand why marijuana was gratuitously added. It's calling for something that's already illegal. And while the tobacco thing is essentially self-enforcing, this marijuana would bring in the police. And I was shocked. I looked up what the statistics are. Marijuana enforcement is just blatantly racist. Of marijuana arrests and summonses issued so far in 2020, 92% were given to Black or Hispanic people. Only 5% went to whites, even though use of marijuana is about equal in the two groups. This tracks data from 2019. Also, when somebody gets a summons, it's a criminal summons. And if they miss their court appearance, then that becomes an arrest warrant for them. So we really should not be going here, especially since we just heard from the commanding officer of the 20th that they're going to be looking even more closely at drug infractions. That's up to them. We as a board should not be calling for this, for more people in Rikers, for the deportation of more immigrants, and for this incredibly racist enforcement of this law. So I'm sorry, but I asked for an amendment to withdraw withdraw the marijuana part.
That's not a friendly amendment, Ken, as you know.
Then I'm making a motion that we withdraw it.
Well, I think as we did at the committee, let's continue the discussion and then consult with Mark about how to deal with the vote. Is that all right, Mark?
Yes, but let's get going, guys.
Melissa Rosenberg, Arena Stennett.
Quickly, I agree with everything Ken just said about not putting marijuana in the resolution. Also, I kind of wonder if this resolution is meant to point to the homeless men smoking in the median that everyone like hate that that's happening right now. And it makes me a little suspicious of the timing of this resolution. And, I think we don't need more enforcement by the police on the marijuana piece, and just in general, I won't be voting for this.
If that's your question, if that's a question, Melissa, no, it's not because of the shelters, or this is an issue that we've had in mind for a long time. And it's about secondhand smoke of any kind in all of our parks. The medians are one example, but it's really about all of our parks. Irena.
A couple of comments, but my first is procedurally, I think a resolution that impacts so many residential buildings on the west side of Central Park West, and I'm going to speak specifically about Central Park West. I think this should be, we should table this, because what I suspect will happen is that people who currently smoke on the perimeter of Central Park, and unlike Riverside, there's a buffer. There's the perimeter wall, there's shrubs. There's a buffer between the perimeter of the park and a playground or seating inside the park. There are bus stops there. People sit there waiting for the bus. They might pull out a cigarette. And I think what may happen is the people who currently sit on the perimeter to have a smoke may go across the street in front of the buildings on Central Park West to have their cigarette. They're not going to not smoke on Central Park West because you've decided that they can't smoke on the perimeter. So it concerns me that a resolution that's going to impact both the residential and park side of the street is not getting a proper airing. I also think that there are people who maybe walk into the park smoking, might see a park worker, thank you, Doug, and then the park worker says, could you just sit on the perimeter with that? There's no parking there's no smoking inside of the park. So now we've left no alternative place for people to smoke. So I just wanted to say that, and Clary, I know you spoke to Betsy Smith, the president of the Central Park Conservancy. Did you ever reach her? And if you did, what did she have to say?
Irena, I did not. It was not my plan to try to speak with her about this. I think one of our community members may have. I have not.
Excuse me, Clary, you called me for her contact information.
That's right, but not for me.
I gave it to you.
That's correct, but it wasn't for me. I passed it on to the community member that asked for it, Irena.
Okay, so we have a, I don't see any other hands. We have a.
Jay is up. Jay's
I'm
hand.
sorry. Okay, let's go.
Jay?
I just had a quick question, Clary. You described this as the result would be just no smoking anywhere in any park.
Yes.
And just technically, I'm not familiar with it. The public sidewalk adjacent to Central Park is considered part of the park?
Jay, that's correct. Around Central Park, there is a wall most of the way around. There is less of a wall around Riverside Park, but in all cases to the actual avenues or Riverside Drive, that is parkland. That's correct.
Okay. I just want to be clear.
Hey, could you explain quickly or briefly why the borough president kept the perimeter out of the legislation?
Yes, she told us, Irena, and I know you were not at the committee meeting. She told us that when she proposed this legislation to amend the Clean Air Act to include not smoking in prohibiting smoking in parks, that in order to get it passed back 10 years ago or so with some of her other colleagues, she needed to make some compromises at that time based upon what people were thinking at that time. She would not have proposed these exceptions on her own, but that's what she had to do to get the legislation passed at that time. I think our committee thought that chances are many members of the council now have probably somewhat softened their views on these matters. So that's the answer to that. Mark, here's what I suggest. I believe that Ken's proposed amendment would be to eliminate the second to the last paragraph, because currently the Smoke-Free Air Act with regard to parks refers to tobacco products. The second to the last paragraph urges it to also apply to marijuana if and when marijuana otherwise becomes legal, because it's, as I understand it, it's not now. I want to speak briefly on that point. Then my suggestion is we take a vote as to whether to amend the proposed resolution to eliminate that paragraph. If it doesn't pass, we vote on the resolution as it is currently stated. If it does pass, then we vote on the resolution minus that paragraph.
That's correct. Okay. We're coming up on, I'm going to take a brief moment of chair's privilege. We're coming up on 8:30. This is when I thought we would be further along in this meeting. I want to assure everybody who's holding on to comment that we will have at least an hour of public comment. As promised, it'll just be a little later. I need you all to bear with me because this is the meeting that we have to have in order to do our work. With that, Clary, yes, let's have
let me just say briefly then that the reference to marijuana and to entirely smoke-free and free of all secondhand smoke passed very broadly in the committee. And the comments that were made that I'm just going to briefly repeat were, you really don't, at least most of us, don't want our kids, aside from the secondhand smoke for everybody, we don't want our kids walking around watching people smoke marijuana in our parks. Well, let me just leave it at that. But it passed very strongly as written in the committee, and so I urge people to vote against Ken's amendment. Does anybody else want to say anything quickly on that, or do we vote, Mark?
Well, we're going to vote. We're going to vote on. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do want to say something quickly, which is why not just make it all smoking? Is like we're calling for banning of all smoking.
Exactly. Exactly. No smoking in the park. Not to mention what you smoke.
The reason is that the law as written now defines smoking to be tobacco.
That's exactly right.
So call for.
I'm really not kidding, guys.
Change the
let's vote.
Yeah, let's vote. Vote on the amendment.
Yeah, we're going to vote on the amendment, Shelley.
And
so,
Mark, let me just say one other really quick thing. The resolution is not about enforcement. How and when and where and if ever enforcement by whom, separate issues, not easy issues, but that's not what the resolution is about. The resolution is smoke-free parks. Ask the council to do that. Okay, let's vote.
So we're going to call the question on Ken's amendment. Ken's amendment is, Ken, where are you? There you are. We're essentially is to eliminate that second to last paragraph that talks about marijuana. Is that correct?
Yes.
And otherwise leave it alone. All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to take a show of hands vote on this one. And so those who are in favor of Ken's amendment, please raise your hands now. And anybody who needs to raise their hand physically, please do it. So I see Madge is 1, raising your hand. Rich Robbins is 2. Doug McGowan is 3. I don't see any more on this page. Ethel Sheffer is 4. Louisa Craddock is 5. I don't see any more on this page. And actually, I'm going to vote in favor of the amendment. So that's 6. 6 plus 14 is, Bev Donahue is 1 more. That's 7 plus 15. 7 plus 15 is 22. Okay. Hands down, please.
Now, those opposed to Ken's amendment.
Those opposed to Ken's amendment.
Hands down for those who are in favor. Now let's get those hands down. Raise hands if you are.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. I'm going to lower all hands. Okay. Now, anybody opposed to Ken's amendment, please raise your hand. So I see Shelley and Peter is 2 on the physical hands. Christian is 3. Richard Ash is 4. Steve, 4. I don't see any other physical hands. I got 4.
Audrey is 5.
Audrey is 5. Thank you.
Paul is 6.
Thank you. Paul is 6. Thank you. So that's 6 plus 8 is 14.
Did you get Peter Sampton?
No, I didn't. How did Peter vote?
You didn't get. Hand is up.
For what? I'm sorry.
He's
For
voting
no?
again. He's voting no.
Voting no. All right. So that's 15. Thank you.
Mark, you didn't get me.
Robert, what are you? What's your vote?
Against.
Thank you. That's 16. Anybody else? Okay. We're going to lower those hands.
Abstaining.
Okay. Anybody abstaining? I don't see any physical hands.
I'm abstaining. Doug Kleiman.
Doug Kleiman is abstaining. Okay. So I've got 1 + 4.
The thing's battery's going low.
I got 1 + 4. Is that right? It's 5.
Yeah.
So the amendment fails 22 to 16 to 5. Fails by 1 vote.
Okay, now we'll vote on the resolution in chief, which is what you had distributed to you, and.
Shelley, I'm sorry, Clary, hang on 1 second. Shelley, the amendment failed. Do I have to take a second vote on the resolution?
Mark, Mark,
Yeah.
hold on. You said 22, 16 to 5. Isn't that 22 in favor, 21 against?
Yes.
So
it
Passes.
Oh, it passes. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry. My bad. A little bit of tension tonight. All right. So the resolution carries. So now we vote on the resolution with the as amended.
Okay, so now what we're voting on is the resolution that you received in your packet
Sorry,
minus.
let me interrupt. I'm sorry. Shelley, do I have to take a second vote?
There's a
No.
vote. The vote.
No,
The
Of
vote.
course we do, Mark. We have to pass a resolution to submit.
Okay.
to,
It'll take less time to debate it
Vote-
than
the
to do
vote
it than to
is-
debate it.
The vote is on the resolution without the last part that was eliminated.
Without the second to
Very
the
good.
last paragraph.
Okay, so now, everybody's hands down, please. All those in favor of the resolution as amended? I've got me as 1, Madge is 2, Rich is 3, Doug Kleiman is 4, Shelley is 5, Peter Sampson is 6. I've got Christian is 7, and that's it for this page. Bev Donahue is 8, Richard Ash is 9, Louisa is 10.
Robert Espier.
Ethel
Robert?
has her hand up.
I don't see Robert. Where's Robert?
I see him.
I've got 10. Audrey,
Doug
where are you?
McGowan's a yes.
Yeah, Audrey, yes.
Doug McGowan is 11. Audrey is 12. I don't see Robert SBA. Do you have, Robert, are you voting?
He
Voted yes.
voting.
Okay. So I've got, what have I got? I've got 11 plus,
Did you get Doug Kleiman?
yes, I did,
Mark, I'm a yes as well, Catherine.
is 12. Thank you. And
Hey, Mark,
anybody?
Paul
I'm a
Fisher.
little confused. What are we voting for now? I hate to sound so obtuse, but what?
All right.
This is all smoking in the parks or
Linda,
just-
you're voting on the resolution that you received minus the second to the last paragraph. That's precisely what it is.
Okay, thanks.
Just strike the second to the last paragraph.
Okay, so, right, so I've got, all right, we're gonna do this again. Hands up for everybody who is voting yes on the resolution as amended. Please leave your blue hand up if it's up. I see Beverly, Ethel 2, Richard is 3, Louisa is 4. Going to the next page. Doug McGowan is 5. Shelley is 6. Peter Sampson is 7. Rich Robbins is 8. Mark Diller is 9. Christian Cordova is 10. Catherine DeLazaro is 11. Doug Kleiman is 12. And do we get Robert SBA's vote?
Did you get Madge and Louisa?
Oh, Madge is 13. Louisa, I don't have. I did have, yes.
And Audrey is 14.
14, thank you.
Paul Fisher, 15.
15 plus 22 is 37.
So pass
Okay.
it.
All right. Hands down, please. All right. Anybody opposed to the resolution as amended? Please raise your hand now.
Oops.
I see no physical hands, and there are three virtual hands. So 3 against. Anybody abstaining? Please raise your hand now. Actually, hang on 1 second. Hang on 1 second. Okay, now, anybody abstaining, please raise your hand. Thank you. I don't see any physical hands. I see 4 virtual hands. And I think that's everybody. So the resolution,
Elizabeth Caputo, are you abstaining?
let's not talk about votes.
All right.
37 to 3 to 4 to 0.
Okay, I will, tomorrow, I'll send the amendment, the final version with the amendment to Penny, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Okay, so moving on with our agenda. The next thing that we're going to, do, may I have unanimous consent for the approval of the minutes? They were sent to you.
So moved.
So moved. All in
Any
favor?
objection?
I have a comment. There's a mistake on page 10. There's a part about the dogs off leash in Central Park. It says, Susan, I was assaulted by a dog walker in the Ramble because, and that's it. So I can't vote for this. Otherwise, I would approve the minutes. I don't know how to handle that, Mark.
What would the rest of the sentence be?
Well, the long explanation of what happened, which I don't want to go into now, but it just.
So you will send me, may I have consent to adopt Susan's completion of that portion of the minutes and then adopt them, please?
Yes.
Yes.
And I apologize. I apologize in capital
Yeah.
letters, not reading it earlier. I'm sorry.
No worries, we'll get it done. All right, it looks like, unless there's anybody opposed, I will consider those minutes adopted. Thank you. Next thing is actually, I'm going to pivot, and I think there's only 2 elected officials that have joined us, unless Gail Brewer is here. So I'm going to quickly go to our elected officials. As you can hear in the tone of my voice, my apologies for moving everybody fast tonight, but we've got a lot of people in our waiting room who want to speak for themselves, and I promised them at least an hour, and I'm going to hold us to that promise. So if our elected officials could.
Gabriel is here.
All right, so we're going to call in this order: Gail Brewer, Helen Rosenthal, and Brad Hoyleman. And I don't think there's anybody else unless can somebody.
I saw Mark Levine.
Okay.
All
Right.
right. Don't be elected. Mark,
Here also. I've been in.
Oh, hey, Senator Jackson, thank you. All right, we're gonna, yeah, hello.
a procedural question quickly.
Yes, sir.
In your report, you talked about a series of small meetings with stakeholders on the homeless issue. And I was wondering if the board can have notice of these meetings and who the participants are.
I will do that offline. Thank you.
Okay.
The short answer is so far it's been the co-chairs of HHS and BCI, and I am looking to expand that both with stakeholder representatives and with other members of our board. Is Gail Brewer here and ready to speak?
I'm ready to go, and I'll be 1 minute. I'm going to go
really
very
appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Number one, on terms of the hotels, without getting into any specifics, thanks to the board and all the elected officials, we wrote to CBanks. We have a list of questions. We have not gotten an answer. That's the simple version. Number two is in terms of the census. I know we're all sick of it, but I will tell you that we have sent out 2 postcards, 140,000 each. We just got the list of the persons who have left. We have sent and asked for absentee ballots, 35,000 from the borough of Manhattan, and each one of them is going to get a letter in their temporary residence reminding them that they live in New York City in Manhattan and they need to use that address. Those are the 2 things specifically, and of course, we gave out $215,000, first borough president do that, to community groups from the top to the bottom of Manhattan, saying get out on the streets, and they've been doing that in terms of the census. In terms of schools, we know what's going on, but I did write to the mayor and say, why is he withholding $12 million of our capital money that we allocated, not this year, but last year, for gyms, ventilation, technology that could be used for virtual, etc., and I don't have an answer. The Monumental Women statue is up. I was very pleased to be part of it. If you haven't seen it in Central Park, you should go. The suffragists look fantastic. In terms of the high holidays for the Jewish community, we wrote to parks, education, and transportation because so many local synagogues need outdoor space, and we're waiting to hear back from them. I want to thank Linda Alexander for joining us all up and down Manhattan for our small business crawl. We gave out, it was 95 degrees, but not only on the west side, but from the top to the bottom, we gave out the usual mask, sanitizer, and cookies, fortune cookies that talk about the census. And then finally, we did send Cantilever Building, 251 West 91st Street, I think is outrageous. We sent a strong letter to Michael Dell, Mr. Computer Man, saying this is ridiculous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Rosenthal, can you give us I'm really begging everybody for just 2 minutes, please.
So in addition to what Gail just said, I just got off a very productive conversation with PS9 and PS87 parents who had concerns about their children walking to and from school at pickup and drop off. We had a great conversation. Captain Zuber was on the line, did a great job reassuring parents, letting them know exactly the additional coverage. I think it was a really productive conversation. And there will be another stakeholder meeting, as Mark is going to talk about offline before school starts. So they're in touch, the principals all are in touch with the 20th precinct. And that is very reassuring. And I've told him a dozen times and texted him even again 5 minutes ago that I really appreciate him for all the work that you've been doing, Captain, around keeping Upper West Siders safe. You know, the narcotics drug bust that you facilitated, I just can't thank you enough for all of your hard work. As you know, I called Shay and let him know that I think that. And lastly, we'll be sending out an email tomorrow about how parents who want to donate their pandemic EBT cards, how they can do that if they want to donate to families in need. Again, sign up for my emails. You can go to helenrosenthal.com and you'll get all this information. Mark, you are a saint.
Hardly,
you.
and I'm so grateful. I mean no disrespect to all of our wonderful elected officials. I just have to move us along. So thank you very much. And thanks for mentioning that Captain Zuber is increasing patrols around area schools. I'm going to go next to Senator Robert Jackson. Senator, you look like you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Okay, so listen, first, thank you. I've been following your community board from the beginning, and obviously you have a lot going on. But I wanted to say that I stood with Brad Holman yesterday and activists about the U.S. Postal Service in respect to the lock boxes that we're trying to get all over the state. He said it costs about $4 to $5 million in order to do that. And I said, this is about democracy, making sure that everyone has the opportunity to vote with respect to absentee ballots and what have you. So that's one thing. Number two, on September 9th, there is a forum on public safety in which I am going to be having Jamal Bowman and others that will be speaking on the issue of public safety. I will email anyone of the 183 people that listening to what's going on now, my updated email list, which basically has all of the information. But I wanted to say that the budget is a big thing that's obviously happening in New York City. $5 billion is going to be approved by the state legislature down the road. We don't know when. As you know, de Blasio put the layoffs on hold momentarily, but then the state of New York obviously is waiting for the federal government to come through. If not, then we, the state legislature, is going to have to deal with increased taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, 119 billionaires and thousands of millionaires, in order to make sure that the state of New York survived this pandemic. They have a lot more to say, but Mark, I'm going to email you. If you can send it out to your entire CB7, I appreciate it very much.
Senator, absolutely. We already have a couple of, I should note for the crowd that all of the staffs of elected officials that couldn't appear in person have waived their time to speak, and I thank them all for that. And we will do an e-blast tomorrow with any flyers that any of you send to us in a form that we can upload. Thank you very much, Senator Jackson. Turning immediately to Senator Hoylman. Brad Hoylman, you're welcome to Community Board 7, and we are counting on your
on my efficiency. Yes, thank you, Mark. Thank you for that great discussion about homelessness, and to my colleagues and Borough President Brewer for helping organize that. It was very informative. I hope the community got a lot out of it. And we are hopefully charting a path forward on that. Secondly, as Senator Jackson mentioned, we had a press conference to call for secure ballot drop boxes to be distributed across the state. 33 states across this nation, plus the District of Columbia, have the opportunity for voters to go to these secure ballot drop boxes to vote rather than going through the U.S. Postal Service, which we know is being underfunded and undermined by the Trump administration, or having to wait in line or go to a polling site, which will endanger their health. So I'm hopeful that with Senator Jackson's support and the borough president who was with us, we can get that done. And then finally, I want to say I strongly support our teachers union and delaying the opening of schools until we have a plan from the de Blasio administration where staff, teachers, administration feels comfortable. There's nothing more important than a safe workplace. Thank you, Mark. Back to you.
Thank you so much.
Mark, on that point, they did delay remote learning will start on September 16th and in-person learning will start on September 21st.
Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you very much, Senator Hoylman.
And apply for your ballots now.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, of course, is our other council member from our district is Mark Levine. Mark, they set a high bar for you, but here you go.
I'm going to try and beat it by being brief. Thank you for running such a tight meeting, really incredible. Yes, we are drafting legislation on prohibiting smoking in some of the marginal park areas. The input that you all offered tonight was incredibly helpful around some of the points you made. I particularly appreciated. So we'll make a point of reaching out to you as a board to discuss how you want to shape this legislation as it's being drafted. And as Senator Hoylman and Kristen just mentioned, big news on the school front today, pushing back in-person learning by 11 days and introduction of mandatory random testing. This was a major demand of the unions. It's going to mean 10 to 20% of every school community, including parents and students, are going to be tested once per month, a rapid turnaround test of 48 hours. A single positive will mean that a student or teacher's pod will go on quarantine for 14 days, and a second positive in a school will shut down the building until contact tracers can determine the source of the spread. If there's a citywide positivity rate above 3%, we're at 1% right now, but if we pass 3%, then the whole system will revert back to online learning only. And because there's incredible inequality in the positivity rate citywide right now, luckily CB7 is got much lower levels. There's an action plan in place for neighborhoods which tend to be low-income communities of color if they surpass 3% for testing and social services and more. So big news on that front. I'll wrap it up there and appreciate the time. Thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Council Member. And I've been told that Linda Rosenthal has joined us. Assembly Member, we're trying to move this along real quickly. So if you can have a couple of quick points for us, we'll be glad to recognize you. Welcome to Community Board 7.
Hi, thank you very much, Mr. Diller. So I'll go quickly. I'm having a census phone bank on September 14th at 5:30, and this is to call West Siders. West Siders usually have a great response rate, but not so much this year, which is true around the city, and we really have to amp up the numbers. So call my office if you're interested. We're also having a virtual blood drive, but you do have to go give your blood in person. And it goes till September 19th. Call my office if you're interested. And the Parks Department early decision to deny permits for youth sports was ridiculous. And I was contacted by hundreds of constituents. I wrote to the Parks Commissioner and they reversed that decision, which I applaud. Governor Cuomo signed into law one of my bills granting Good Samaritan protections for people who use naloxone. And this is like a broad protection. If you're in a beauty salon, if you're in a library, anywhere you are, and you administer naloxone to save a life, you will be protected from any kind of suit, but it encourages the use. And we know people overdose everywhere. which is another reason to have my safe consumption spaces bill become law. People go there, they use, no one dies in any of those places. And I think I'll end there.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Rosenthal. It's great to see all of you here with us at Committee Board 7. And given the length of our meeting tonight, I'm very grateful for everybody honoring the quick turnaround of these comments. And I will call out later the names of the staffs of elected officials. But right now I want to turn immediately to our our election committee, and that's Josh Cohen. It is time for us to nominate officers for next year. Josh, can you take it away?
Yes, thank you, Mark. My name is Josh Cohen. I'm the chair of the Elections Committee. Yes, Shelley, you have your hand up. I can't hear you.
Got to unmute, Shelley.
Okay, are you starting nominations?
Yes, we are.
I would like to.
Well, let Josh do his thing.
Okay, go ahead.
We're going to accept nominations for the board in this order. Chair, there'll be 2 vice chairs and 2 co-secretaries. So I'd like to first open the floor for nominations for chair. Yes, Shelley.
I'd like to nominate Mark Diller.
Okay.
I second.
Second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for chair? Anybody? I don't see everybody. If there is, speak. Mark, do you accept this nomination for chair?
Yes, I do, and I thank my colleagues for nominating me.
Thank you.
And I'd like to move to close nominations for chair.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I'd like to offer, open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Doug Kleiman.
Second.
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 Okay.
I nominate Andrew Ridgie.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Anybody else have anyone to nominate?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Seema Reddy.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, nominations for vice chair are closed. Would now like to open the floor for co-secretaries.
I'd like to nominate Julian Giordano.
Second.
Second.
I'd like to nominate Beverly Donahue.
Second.
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 Okay, anybody else?
I move to close nominations.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize, but I meant to ask Doug if he accepts the nomination for vice
right.
chair.
I do.
And Andrew Ridgie, do you accept the nomination for vice chair?
I do. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Seema, do you accept the nomination for vice chair?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And Julian, do you accept the nomination for co-secretary?
Yes.
And Beverly, do you accept the nomination for co-secretary?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so all the nominations are closed. I guess I'll read off the names. There's 1 nomination for chair, that's Mark Diller. For vice chair, there are 3, Doug Kleiman, Andrew Ridgie, and Seema Reddy. And for co-secretary, Julian Giordano and Beverly Donahue. Anybody have anything they'd like to add? Nominations are closed. Mark will speak to the election process since we will not be in person.
Okay, so earlier today, I emailed to everybody a proposed amendment. I want to give my special thanks to a bunch of folks who were on a training last week that pointed out to us that we have to have a bylaws amendment in order to vote anyway other than by a written paper ballot, which is what our bylaws say. Obviously, we're not getting together next month and exchanging written paper ballots. Unless the governor has some surprises for us. So the resolution is a bylaws amendment, and we need to give 30 days advance notice in order to be able to vote on it next month. So next month we will vote on this resolution. Hopefully it'll pass, and then we will, and the resolution calls for an electronic means using something called a Google form, and I will promise to learn more about it between now and then. Use a Google form that will allow you to vote in real time because the open meetings law still applies to us. It's just that we don't have to be in the same room. And so the open meetings law says that the rest of our bylaws apply, and then the voting has to take place in real time, which is why we can't do it by email or by any of the other means that would have been a lot more simple. If we can't get that to work, then the only other option will be to do a roll call vote where you announce your votes for each of the things we just said. That is always available to us, but please take a look at the resolution and proposed amendment, which would only be in effect for actually 13 months. It would be in effect for a year and a month. And hopefully by then we will no longer be holding virtual meetings. That is my notification to you of a proposed bylaws amendment, which according to our current bylaws is required in order to vote on it next month. If there are any questions, I'll take them now, but this is the kind of thing that I'd be happy to answer questions about offline.
Call the question.
There's no question to call. We don't
No,
vote tonight. We're not.
I have a quick suggestion. Do we need a month notice for any amendments to it? In which case I want to raise something now.
Yes.
No, you don't. The bylaws say that amendments can be entertained and adopted on the night of the vote.
We have to move the amendment, the bylaw change tonight. We don't have to vote on it. So it's on the table.
Okay.
So can we change it after tonight?
Yes.
Okay. And just really quickly, my comment would be that we shouldn't limit ourselves to just a year. That if we want the option after this, why not leave it on the table? And we don't have to use it.
Open meetings law will probably prevent that, but I'm not opposed to it.
Well, I would say that as long as we're doing virtual meetings, just to apply during that period.
Okay. All right, then consider the proposal amended as Christian just said.
So move the proposed bylaw amendment tonight, and we need a second.
Second.
Okay, and so it'll be on the agenda for our October meeting. Given the hour and how many people are waiting, I'm going to waive my chair's report. There were 2 members of our board that wanted to be heard on issues. And so I will ask both Roberta and then Catherine to be quick, but I'm going to call on each of you.
So first, we now have a link on our website for people who want to get their ballot to vote by mail. So it's on our website. So, and you can also ask for a absentee ballot claiming an illness. Everyone's entitled to it. And you can do it online. So you can email it so you don't have to do it by snail mail. The other thing I want to say is that the census is finished the end of this month. So please encourage everybody you know to sign up for the census. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Catherine DeLaz. I'm sorry, go ahead. Thank you, Roberta. Catherine DeLazaro, you had something you wanted to share?
Yes, thank you, Mark. My name is Catherine DeLazaro. I'm a committed member of Community Board 7. I speak directly to the board and to the community out of a genuine appreciation for all the efforts that everyone is making to address our community's needs during this challenging time. I respect everyone on the board, the perspectives you bring, and the work you do. I especially appreciate the leadership of our chair, Mark Diller. He has been compassionate, fair, and inclusive, and he cares, just as we all do, about our community. Mark's responsibility as chair is not to fix problems, but to listen, communicate the facts, and provide guidance in helping our community navigate the system together. He's doing an admirable job in the midst of difficulty. I want to thank Mark and say that many of us respect you, support you, and appreciate you for the work that you do on behalf of our community. I stand by your leadership 100%. It's important that we listen to and see the best in each other and recognize that as we work together to address contentious issues and sometimes painful personal circumstances, we each approach situations differently, and that is a strength which will help us arrive at better understandings. On the board, in my experience, we care about working with those with whom we disagree and learning from each other as we stay grounded in the reality of our limitations and focus on the practical and meaningful steps we can take through established board processes and structures. We continue to grow and we want to do better, and that's because we care. Our focus should be on caring about all of our neighbors and each other. And that is what Mark and many on the board and community model for us. So thank you, Mark, and everyone. And I look forward to working together in the days ahead. And that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Catherine. That was as embarrassing a moment in the community board as I've ever experienced. Anyway, thank you. And thank you for your thoughts about all the rest of our board members and their commitment. It is a privilege to lead a group of so many smart and committed people. And with that, we're going to turn to our public session. But I do so, I'm going to ask Rich and/or Christian to please drop the link for the sign up again in, because there are 112 people in the room, but only about a dozen or so people that signed up to speak, which I find.
Mark, I've been posting it every few minutes and just did a few minutes ago. I will do so again, but let's just remind people that if you want to speak in the public session, which is coming up now, you need to fill out the form. You need to go to chat and click on the link, which is bit.ly, and then some more text, which I'll put in chat. It's bit.ly CB7 speaker request sept 2020. And you have to get every letter correct. So go to chat and look for that link.
So if you go to chat, you can either copy it and paste it, or you can just click on it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Better to just click on it.
All right, so I'm going to start with a couple of folks that I know that most folks here are here to talk about safety, street homelessness, the shelter homeless, and a few other things. So there were a couple of folks with very quick updates. I'm going to call on Zach Campbell from the Gilder Center.
Mark, sorry.
Sorry?
Since I'm going to be doing the time, I want to be very clear with everyone. We're going to be equal and fair. Can we set the time that everybody is allotted to speak, and I will respectfully remind them.
Same as when we were doing public speakers, where it's 1:30, please. If you're in the middle of a sentence, we'll let you finish it, but we really do need to make sure that with all these people in the room, I feel a great responsibility to make sure that we get to as many of you as possible. We can't possibly get to 100 people, but we'll do our very best. So Zach Campbell, followed by, my phone turning off. No, Zach Campbell, followed by Timothy Harrell, followed by Susan Peters, followed by Peter Arnson, and then we will get to other topics. Go ahead, please, Zach.
Thank you, Mark. Zach Campbell here, Community Liaison for the American Museum of Natural History. Just levity is brevity here. The museum's preparing to open on September 2nd, tomorrow, for members, and then on September 9th for the general public. The museum will be ready to deliver a blend of physical and digital experiences for all audiences, created by staff working both in the building and remotely, and continue to provide unique offerings and benefits to our dedicated community of museum members and visitors. For more details about the plans for the reopening, please go to www.amnh.org/planyourvisit, or just go to the amnh.org webpage and navigate in the sidebar. At the last CB7 meeting, I noted that work on the Gilder Center project continued, and we were in accordance with phase 1 guidelines from the city and state with COVID-19 health and safety measures in place. Since then, work has progressed on some of our excavation and foundation phase to the completion of the caisson drilling operations. Our work will continue through September, including approximately the same number of truck deliveries, from 10 to 20 trucks on average arriving per day. We'll be pouring concrete for the slab on grade, as well as doing below grade plumbing and intermittent soil and rock removal. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach. Timothy Harrell from the CCRB.
He's no longer on, so we want to move to
Susan Peters from, I think she's a constituent.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Great. I'm here to request that you all fulfill your mission statement of providing a safe environment for our neighborhood. I wish to bring to your attention the mounting on our neighborhood public light posts of 5G antennas owned by private telecom corporations. This brings into the neighborhood an exposure to high frequency radiation that thousands of independent scientific studies have warned about many ill health effects. In 2013, the American Academy of Pediatrics sent a formal letter to the FCC complaining that its wireless radiation exposure limit do not account for the unique physiological vulnerabilities of children. The limits set by the FCC from 1996 and have not been updated. How many young people and children had cell phones in 1996, and how much radiation was coming from them? How many young people today will be dealing with cancer going forward? This law, the Telecommunications Act, left the authority to state and local government to protect the safety and health of their residents. I strongly urge the board to educate yourselves about this monumental issue. I would be willing to put you in contact with experts in the law, the technology, and the effects on health. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going next to Peter Arnson from the Columbus Amsterdam bid.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Great, thanks. Peter Arnson with Columbus Amsterdam bid. Wanted to alert you all to our open streets for restaurants starting at 97th Street and going up to 110th Street. It's on both Saturdays and Sundays. And the streets are open for people to walk or ride on from noon till 9 p.m. And the restaurants are open and have seating out into the street so that it's safer. So there's about 30 restaurants that are able to take advantage of that on Amsterdam Avenue. So really appreciate that. We also are going to be taking care of trees with a tree stewardship program. We've been doing that for over a year, but we're collecting more stewards to continue that work. And people can reach us through our email at info@Columbus Amsterdam bid. Last couple of things is that there is compost collection happening at the 107th Street Community Garden. That's at 107th and Columbus Avenue
30 seconds.
on Wednesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. And then just want to mention that there are really great green markets that have social distancing at 97th Street, 114th Street, and at 110th and Manhattan Avenues. So have a good evening or night, whatever it is at this point. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm not completely understanding what Rich is sending me. So while we figure that out between he and I'm going to call on, let's see.
Mark, could I?
Yeah,
There
Rich,
are
go
two other non-hotel speakers, Martha Dwyer, who should go next.
Okay.
And then we have one person, Ashley Gonzalez, who can go after Martha.
Let's go in that order, please. So Ms. Dwyer and then Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you very much. I am particularly concerned. I'm not for or against the hotels. I'm more or less for them. I think we should all share the burden. But my concern is wearing of masks. And that's going to end social distancing. And that's going to be particularly important when parents and kids are going back and forth to school when that happens. And I'm down the street from Lucerne, so I've continually contacted Project Renewal and sent them pictures because I see guards outside with no masks or masks down, Project Renewal staff outside with no masks or masks down, and many of the clients without masks. There is a rule that everyone signs saying they will wear masks inside and outside, and otherwise they can be forced to leave. Project Renewal is not enforcing that rule vis-a-vis staff, guards, or residents.
Thank you. I'm going to call on Ashley Gonzalez, but I'm going to take a quick moment to say something. The form that we're asking you to fill out, please do your best with it. We literally created it at 6 o'clock tonight because we're trying to make sure that we hear from a wide variety of people. There is sort of a for or against, and I appreciate that it's difficult to find yourself in one or another of those boxes. So this is in no way indicative of Community Board 7's trying to make this into an on-off switch. It is simply us trying to make sure that we hear from as wide a variety of people as we possibly can and we want to hear from as many of you as we can. So with that, please forgive the inartful nature of my drafting or our drafting of that form. I am grateful to the people who created it, and it seems like a good tool for this job. Please make the best of it that you can, and please do fill it out so that we can get it moving, keep moving with more people to speak. So Ashley Gonzalez, who I believe is from the libraries, and then I'll be back to you.
My name is Ashley Gonzalez. I'm just happy to announce that as of next Monday, there are going to be 50 locations open for non-contact grab and go setting. On the Upper West Side, the locations are Morningside Heights and Riverside. So more libraries are open. If you have a specific question, you can always call 917-ASK-NYPL.
Ashley, the indoor part of the library is still closed, correct?
Correct. You can place your holds online, or if you call Ask NYPL, they can place them on hold for you too. Then all you need to do is go in and grab your book. It's already checked out for you. So you're going to be in and out really quick.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So the next person I want to call on is Stanley Gorodeski. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. To be followed by William Thomas.
I don't see Stanley's with us any longer.
Okay. Mr. Thomas, to be followed by Ann Kemper, K-E-M-P-E-R.
Oh,
Can you guys hear me? There is a person named Stan who didn't put a last name. Let's see if he's the person.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, are you Mr. Gorodeski?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for listening to me. I wanted to bring a couple of matters to kind of attention of CB7. One is that Help USA, when it comes to Belclair Hotel, is not enforcing the 10 p.m. curfew. There's people coming in 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I've noted it, and I've kind of sent emails about it, but nothing has changed and nothing's been done about it. That's kind of point one. Point two is that people are kind of standing outside and smoking. It kind of goes to the point of secondhand smoke that was raised earlier today. The guards are not patrolling the block. They're not patrolling the street, as has been mentioned several times. We live on the block. We see people across the street on the church steps all the time at all hours of the night. And the guards are not even walking down on that side of the street. And they're not even walking. They stand on the corner of 77th and Broadway, and they really don't do much, and they don't go anywhere. And they basically talk to the residents, and they're very friendly with them, which is fine, but they're not really trying to make sure that nothing's happening on the block. We have witnessed drug deals on the block. We reported it to the police. Police came, said there's nothing they can do because they didn't witness it. When we pointed out to the people who bought the drugs, the police didn't do anything about it because they said they can't do anything about it until they see it themselves. So just wanted to kind of bring it to your attention, kind of the things that are happening as we see them live.
Sir, you need to keep calling 311 and 911 when you see things.
We have, and the police have come and they said they can't do anything.
Because the court can use the data.
Yeah, it is important to keep, thank you, Roberta, you're absolutely right. It's important to keep calling because that's how they collect the data as Roberta just said, so forgive me for repeating.
We do use the data for our DNS and other programs.
This is how we try to get more help too, because if I could just amplify, Roberta's absolutely right. And when we ask for more funding for the police department, if that's something that we do as part of our budget requests, they will allocate officers to the places where they have the highest incidences of crime. So it's important to keep, okay. So Mr. Thomas, was it?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we sure can. Please go ahead.
Okay. Beautiful. Hi, everyone. My name is William Thomas. I'm here as a member of Open New York. We're an all-volunteer, independent pro-housing organization. And I just wanted to speak in favor of the continued use of hotels as emergency shelter. I live in the East Village, but I feel strongly that these shelters benefit all New Yorkers. And I wanted to speak to CB7 from that perspective. We're currently experiencing an eviction crisis on top of a global pandemic. And it benefits all New Yorkers when those without stable housing are able to social distance. Furthermore, I'd like to add, it isn't fair or just to segregate out these emergency shelters to the rest of the city. It's important that wealthy neighborhoods like the Upper West Side accept their fair share of shelters, so poverty isn't concentrated in low-income neighborhoods. In fact, I'd say that high-income neighborhoods like the Upper West Side are ideal for people to get back on their feet because they're so close to job centers and are really engines of opportunity in their own right.
30 seconds.
And then finally, I'd like to address some of the scaremongering we're likely to hear tonight and emphasize that most homeless people are not troubled, are working, and just don't make enough money to afford somewhere to live. But that shouldn't matter because homeless people are human beings and shelter is a human right. So I just want to ask that CB7 proactively embrace and support these shelters moving forward and make a point to ignore those arguing for them to be moved elsewhere. Thank you.
Thanks. Ann Kemper, to be followed by Amanda Fialk. Is it Fialk? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. And I only have one. These are. I'm quite surprised with the number of people in the queue, but not signing up to speak. If that's the case, then that's the case. But I want to make sure that I get to as many folks as want to speak. So Ms. Amanda is no longer in the meeting. Then the next person is Ankur Dalal, followed by Ann Smithy, followed by Jonathan Lindenbaum.
Mark, what happened to Ann Kemper?
I'm here.
Oh, I thought somebody just told me she wasn't here. I apologize. Please go right ahead.
Can you hear me? I guess you can hear me.
You sure can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So I've lived on West 79th for 15 years. When I first heard about shelter residents being moved to hotels, I decided to keep an open mind and open eyes. I have not seen anything in proportion to the reaction that I've heard from some, although it's, of course, a difficult time for everybody right now in the city. So since research has shown that for people experiencing substance abuse and mental health issues, which can contribute to chronic homelessness, the best solution is to provide them with housing first. I'm wondering how CB7 is working to support the transition of shelter residents to permanent housing and increase the amount of affordable housing and SROs in the area, since there have already been long-term residents in some of the SRO hotels in the Upper West Side before the pandemic under a supportive housing program that's been dwindling as for lack of funding and incentives for owners. And so what I'm wondering is how can CB7 work to support getting people into housing and out of hotels and temporary housing?
Thank you. I'm seeing in the Q&A, which we're generally not looking at, so apologize if it hasn't come up yet, that the chat button isn't working. Is that correct?
No, he found it.
No.
Okay. So please use the chat, and if I could impose upon Rich and Christian to keep putting the link in there so that everybody can speak. There's a question in the, okay. So I see Nicole Metzger. Is Ms. Metzger looking to speak?
Ankur Dalal is ready to speak.
Hi, yes, this is Ankur Dalal. Thank you for your time. I am a resident of the Upper West Side for the last 7 years and currently a homeowner on 90th Street. I want to speak in favor of using hotels in the neighborhood for supportive housing. I strongly support the use of hotels for supportive housing, particularly in this time of crisis and COVID. And I also want to echo a statement that Councilmember Rosenthal made in her letter about this topic when she said that housing is a human right. And I urge Community Board 7 to continue with that, with the ethic of that statement. And I would love for the Community Board to continue to support more housing projects of all kinds, market rate, affordable, and supportive housing. This has been a wonderful community, and I'm honored to live on the Upper West Side. I love it here, and I want it to be open to as many people who can live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian, do I have another person signed up?
Nicole Metzger.
Thank you. Ms. Metzger, do you want to address?
Sure, Mark. Is Captain Zuber still on, or Commanding Officer Zuber?
I'm looking for him now.
My
don't-
question is for him.
I don't
if
believe
he's still
so.
on.
No, he's not that.
I don't believe so, but we can certainly, well, you're probably in touch with him too, but we can certainly take your question back to him.
Sure. For the record, I just
It might be good for others to hear it as well.
sure. I'd just like to understand of the 12 people who were arrested last night by the 20th precinct, how many of them reside at one of the shelters, either the Bella Claire or the Belle Nord or Lucerne?
My answer is that I was told, and so this is secondhand, that 9 were at, 6 were at the Lucerne and 3 at the Belle Claire. So I believe that's correct. That's certainly the information I got about 20 minutes before we got on this meeting.
Okay, I understand there were additional arrests made today, and so I'd be seeking that information as well.
Yeah, and I don't have information for you on that. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Trying to keep this moving.
We have Maria Lev and Ann Smithy.
In that order, please go ahead. Who's the first one?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ann Smithy.
Ann
Okay,
Smithy.
hi. This is Ann Smithy. I'm a resident of the Upper West Side, and like a few people who've spoken before me, I also just wanted to say I'm definitely in favor of housing people in the temporary shelters at the hotels. Like people have said, allowing people to social distance benefits everybody in New York City, not just the people who are living in the hotels. I walk around the neighborhood all the time and I haven't seen anything like the kind of disorder people are describing. And then finally, just I think it's really important that we all are a community, we're all part of the same city, and we all have an obligation to help people who are down on their luck and going through a tough time. And that includes sheltering them in hotels during an unprecedented pandemic and economic crisis. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Christian, who's the next one?
Jonathan Lindenbaum.
Thank you.
Terribly sorry for the delay. Can you hear me?
You're all set. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I just want to speak briefly about the shelters. I live on 83rd Street. I go down to 79th all the time. I illustrated some of this in a recent article in Gotham Gazette. And I just want to say that this is a difficult time for everyone, and we need to be doing what we can to help some of the most unfortunately situation residents in the entire city, which is the massive homeless population that New York has. And I think if we can do that, as we've seen based on NYPD reports, without really any adverse effect to the neighborhood in terms of crime rates, then we should absolutely do that. It's far past the time that the Upper West Side helped our fair share. Thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. I'm sorry. Rich and Christian, who's next?
We have Josh Pinkerton and Maria Lev.
Okay.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, my name is Josh Pinkerton. I live at 76th Street and Riverside. I've lived on the Upper West Side for the last 7 years. I want to say that I support the use of these hotels as shelters. Visible poverty is not an aesthetic inconvenience, it's a call to action. Instead of trying to move people out of the neighborhood so we don't have to look at them, we should be trying to face the underlying challenges that they're facing. Creating more permanent affordable housing and supportive housing on the Upper West Side would benefit everyone by providing stability and access to opportunities for low-income residents, reducing segregation and racial inequality, and raising wealth, health, and education outcomes for all. People are homeless because there aren't enough homes. We're in the middle of a housing crisis. Our neighborhood has not done its fair share to grow housing in this city. And I think this is the inevitable consequence of that. We need more homes. Thanks.
Thank you. Who's next?
Maria Lev.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much. I'd like to just say a second to thank all the volunteers. I'm also a volunteer. I'm working with the group of 13,000 residents of the Upper West Side who've banded together as neighbors to talk about and discuss the issue of how hotels, good hotels in our community that have been supporting local businesses and helping our neighborhood really be a vibrant community have suddenly been used for, the important, goal of helping people who are homeless, but there is a detriment to the neighborhood and we need to be realistic about this. I want to say that my first concern has to do with the access to decision-making. I understand when I wrote to your chairman, Mark, who was extremely responsive, got back to me immediately, that Community Board 7 was not at all involved in the process that led to this. And thank you. I'd like to say that I believe that the community board needs to be involved in these important decisions and needs to make sure that the city knows that the community board must listen and must get the community board involved. Second, I am a volunteer, and many of the groups that have spoken on behalf of this issue have highly paid executives and media people who are influencing this, whereas we're just a bunch of neighborhood volunteers with little or no experience in the sophisticated ways of communicating. Third, most important of all, I just want to say that the community has been given very misleading information about sexual offenders and how the reporting of sexual offenders is done in the community. Level 1 offenders are not required to register. We've been given information that there are no sexual offenders in any of these homeless shelters. That is absolutely patently wrong. Level 1 sex offenders are not required to register. So I just want to make sure that when you have people speaking on behalf of organizations that are making a lot of money housing the homeless and providing services to the homeless, that those people are giving accurate information to the neighbors who, and I've been living in the neighborhood for 40 years. I'm a lifelong resident of New York City. We have heart, we are heart. We care about our neighbors. We love our neighbors. We want to see the homeless problem solved once and for all. We're not going to do that by sticking our heads in the sand and just going along with the status quo of very, very, very well-financed groups controlling the conversation and having very, very sophisticated media people controlling the conversation and making the rest of us trying to shame us into silence when we want to solve this problem too. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lev. And Rich and Christian, who's next? I think you had a couple more.
Bobby Barnett.
One moment. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. Please go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Bobby Barnett. I'm a lifelong New Yorker, a public servant, and I live in Chelsea in Manhattan. Like many of you, I walk down the streets of the West Side every day. Most days I pass a neighbor sleeping on the street. It's really hard not to see how profoundly we've failed our homeless neighbors, both our city overall, but also our wealthy neighborhoods in particular. In April, over 60,000 people across the city crowded into shelters, and that doesn't even count the folks who slept on the street. Homelessness is a real crisis in our city, and every neighborhood in New York really needs to do its part to improve the lives of struggling New Yorkers. I urge every one of you to think of your neighbors who won't receive help without the use of hotels as emergency shelters. Please consider this argument in your opposition and in your votes. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like Christopher Good, followed by Nicholas. Is it OO? Is it OO? I'm sorry.
Nicholas who is ready to speak. I have to find Christopher.
Okay, go ahead. And
Christopher's
then
gone.
Christopher Good.
Yeah, Christopher's gone.
Hi, this is Nicholas Wu. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear
me? Yes, you're good. You're good. Go.
Great. Yeah, I would like to voice my support for using the hotels to house the homeless. This situation is actually across the city, across I believe 36 hotels across the city, not just the ones in the Upper West Side. This is not just an Upper West Side issue, but a city-wide issue. Traditional group help shelters are major spreading grounds for COVID-19 because you can't socially distance, and this endangers the lives of homeless residents and everyone in the city as a whole. And I believe that there has been no evidence that this temporary solution has caused any meaningful problems. And I think we have to prioritize the lives and health of the very vulnerable homeless population and all the people in the city over the minor inconveniences. And ultimately, every neighborhood in the city is sharing in the responsibility of halting the spread of COVID-19, which has already devastated our city. And I think the Upper West Side should also share in this communal responsibility as with every other neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next is Mr. Good. Is that correct?
I have Benjamin Wessler.
Oh, what happened to Christopher Good?
It's gone.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wessler?
Hello, can you hear me? I think I was having an issue with the mute button.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Ben Wetzler. I'm an Upper East Side resident, not an Upper West Side resident, but I live, or my last apartment before I moved recently was only 2 blocks away from a homeless shelter that was operated by, I believe it was open by Project Renewal. If it wasn't Project Renewal, it was another one of the really good nonprofit shelter providers that operate in the city. And I never had any issue like the kind that is being described by some of the media reports and some of the people who have spoken tonight, describing kind of chaotic scenes and dystopian scenes. And so I am just in kind of utter disbelief. And I would like to say that I support using the hotels. I think that there should be, if there aren't hotels in my neighborhood that are being used for this purpose, I think that there should be, because it's definitely better in terms of public health and in terms of our social obligations. And I'm really kind of surprised to see so many people talking about crime and things like that, because that was never my experience.
Thanks for joining us. Is there another speaker signed up?
Christy Diamond.
Go ahead.
Hi, so I just want to speak about, living here and what my children and I have experienced walking down the street. We've experienced men masturbating, walking by, catcalling. We had someone follow us home once. We feel really, uncomfortable with what's going on. We're right by the Lucerne. The men stand in front and don't wear masks and smoke and don't social distance, especially since it's a pandemic. It's concerning with what's going on. It seems like it's just adding, more danger to our neighborhood. And for those, I'm sorry?
That's your 30-second warning. Please keep going.
Okay. And I also just want to say, the district shelters 1,837 individuals as compared to 305 that this district contributes to the shelter system. That means that the district is sheltering 6 times more people than we were putting into the shelter system. That's more than our fair share.
30 seconds now.
Okay, I'm good.
You have 30 more seconds.
You got 30 more seconds. I wasn't cutting you up.
It's fine. You guys don't really want to hear what we have to say. And
Oh, that's absolutely not true. So stop the timer. I will not stand for that, because I'm actually surprised that I'm surprised at the way in which the conversation is going, and I want to make sure that we hear from everybody. And
I think then you should call on more people that have things to say, and not just supporters of the shelters that don't live in the neighborhood.
So pause the timer, please. Let me be abundantly clear, Ms. Diamond, because I really think that you're hitting something important, and I don't want to be misunderstood. We're calling on people because these are the people who signed up. And there was only one person who signed up in the category that said opposed. And I was concerned because we threw this together so quickly that people were reluctant to use the word opposed. And I wanted to, that's why I interrupted before to say that please bear with us, because the terminology may be inappropriate, and everybody wants to be heard as it may be difficult to align yourself with that position. So just please go with the bad language, but we absolutely want to hear from everybody. And we know that that's why I even called out Ms. Metzger before she volunteered to speak, because I want to make sure that we hear from everybody, including all the folks in your group that we can possibly hear from in one night. There are 100 of, no. All right, I'll shut up.
Can I just add to this and say that everyone who signed up to speak will be speaking. We have 3 more people signed up. So if anyone feels they're not being represented, it means that they did not sign up to speak.
And we have a good another 20 or so minutes that I promised, 25 minutes that we promised to listen. So please do sign up. We want to hear from you. And we want to hear from you, whatever it is that you have to say. There is no screening other than who signed up and who didn't. So now I'm going to put the timer back to 30 seconds and give Ms. Diamond the chance to finish your remarks.
You know what? I think I've said enough. I will let other people speak since we're crunching on time. So I'll give other people.
Very good. But I do hope you appreciate that, or believe me when I tell you that we want to hear from everybody. This is the point. That's why we're extending this meeting beyond its original purpose. And we're trying to do our best. So who's next?
Megan Martin.
Megan Martin. All right, Ms. Martin, and then who's followed by whom, just so they're ready.
Kate McDonald and Melinda Thaler.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Megan Martin, please go ahead. Do we need to unmute her? Is she?
She has the ability to unmute.
Okay. Megan, are you there?
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
That's better.
Okay. So I want to make 2 points. One point is that this is absolutely not a racial issue, and that we have a very diverse community. Over 13,000 people are on a Facebook page that represent a large proportion of people of color, and many have reached out to us who are particularly offended by the notion that this has anything to do with race. This is a safety, a security, and a public health issue. And anyone that wants us to talk about that this has anything to do with race is being divisive in the community and is totally making this a point that is not enduring about conversation. The second point I want to make is that a large portion of the men who were moved to the Lucerne were from the Washington Jefferson Hotel in Corey Johnson's district, where the same problems that everyone in our community has witnessed: increased crime, prostitution, open and illicit drug use, random acts of violence. And it was those community members in Hell's Kitchen who reached out to Corey Johnson, and he had them relocated to the Lucerne on July 27th. That also had nothing to do with race, which I want everyone on this community board to please be aware of. That had to do with quality of life, and the community came up and had spoken to him about, and he felt that it was necessary to do something. So when we're talking about the Upper West Side as not being welcoming, we all know that that is not true. As of 2019, we had 1,100 shelter beds in our community. Do you know what the Upper East Side had? 80. So as a community, we have always been welcoming to transitional housing. Our own families have always volunteered and lived side by side with many transitional housing, and it's been a fabric of our neighborhood. So I want everyone to really take a good look and to see what this issue is about. It's about watching men drop their pants and urinate in front of our children, having men sit in our playgrounds and openly use illicit drugs and leave needles on the ground, have our children be afraid, have our elders be afraid to walk through the medians. This is what this is about. And I think that this is the hard questions that we need to answer. This is not about being anti-homeless. We've always been a welcoming community to the homeless, and that's something that we're all very proud about. And that we need to get these men services. They were not getting the services at the Washington Jefferson. They are not getting the services at the Lucerne. They are not getting the services at the Belle Claire or the Belle Nord. And we are witnessing this because what is not being given to them within the walls of those hotels are spilling out into our streets. And so let's maybe take a look and see how those should be addressed, because they were what was happened was that all they were done is moved 30 blocks north to the Upper West Side. DHS did not address those problems. They just moved them north, and they just moved their problems north. So let's maybe as a community board and as a community come together and see how can we really address the real problems, which is the men need severe services because many are classified as mentally ill and chemically addicted. And that is a very, very serious problem.
Thank you very much for joining the call. The next person is it Ms. Thaler? No, it's.
Yes, Ms. Thaler, yes.
Ms. Thaler.
Okay, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay. I want to say that I am very unhappy to hear constant feedback that people walk the streets, they see this as a utopian, idyllic community, and there are no problems with conflict between residents, and that everyone's happy and safe and crime hasn't been up. I think that we need to be intellectually honest. We cannot be dishonest with each other and say that those problems don't exist in our community. And for those speakers that already spoke and said, you know, ever since we've had this influx of 700 new residents, I haven't noticed any difference in our community. Well, I can tell you, I have. There was an incident where a gentleman unprovoked walked up the street, threatened to rip my neighbor's dog's head off of his body, hurled a trash can at a doorman. This is all caught on video and was called into the police. And then when I call up Linda Rosenthal's office and they tell me, no, there is no increase in street crime or unrest on the Upper West Side, that is intellectually dishonest. And the prior caller that said he supports this situation and you should just ignore the constituents that are not in favor of it, you should not ignore any constituents. We are all constituents. And that suggestion to ignore people that you disagree with, that is just as despicable as telling people they don't have a human right to shelter. No one's rights are superior to anyone else. And it is not my right to have to be confronted by people that want to rip dogs into shreds and F up the doorman unprovoked. You need to provide security for not just the people that are down on their luck. You also need to provide security for the people that are up on their luck. We are all constituents. We are all human, and we all want to be safe.
Thank you, Ms. Thaler. I'm going to break my own rule about not commenting on speakers. We'll have a little bit of an opportunity to do that at the end, but I will tell you that Community Board 7 will always listen to all of our constituents. Thank you very much. Who's next?
Rich, I don't have anyone listed right now.
And then the last thing, I know like this is just the core.
Somebody needs to mute.
Amelia.
Thinking to bring in the farmhouse.
Amelia Josephson.
Who is that?
Can you hear me?
Amelia Josephson.
Okay, very good. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
I just wanted to add my voice to the folks who spoke out in support of the shelter residents staying at the Lucerne. I participated in an event there on Saturday evening at which a lot of the residents or several of the residents were able to speak out about what it means to them to have the opportunity to stay in that setting where they feel safer than they were in the congregate shelters where they were previously staying. And that's a voice that's really been missing on tonight's Zoom. And I would just urge us all to think about, what those residents would say if they were able to be here tonight, and consider their perspective as well. Thanks so much for making the time to hear these public comments.
Thank you. Can we put the sign-in sheet in the chat again, just to make sure we're not missing anybody? Okay. So if you want to be heard on this, and I do see that there's still 100 people in the attendees, and we've got another at least 20 minutes, 15 minutes ready to go. So we want to hear from everybody, and there is no, we just opened up the door. We didn't ask anybody. Okay, so let's keep going. But please, we're here to hear you. We're here to hear you. Did I say that correctly? So please take advantage of this opportunity, and we will do our best to. We're just in listening mode. We're not going to comment or anything like that.
So Mark, someone signed up under the name of Jackie Moffett, and there's no person in the meeting named Jackie Moffett. So I'm wondering if they signed up with
maybe they've got somebody else's.
Dana Lowy just spoke, or just requested, and she can now unmute.
Good.
Okay, I'm not sure how to do this. Sorry. Is that working?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, big noise in the background. Guys, turn it down. Look, I'm going to be really quick. I think Melinda and Megan spoke eloquently. I spoke with someone today who had 10 years working in a psychiatric institution. She's a medical professional. And she got attacked the other day on Broadway. I've lived in the neighborhood. I've owned on the Upper East Side for, 4 decades, just under 4 decades, okay? And I'd like to quote a psychiatric professional. She is tired of being shamed and made to feel guilty by the failures of our politicians and the public officials that we elect to help with this horrible situation. We all have a heart. We believe that these people deserve treatment. They're not getting it in a hotel. They need help, not hotels. And the bottom line is, when my daughter walks home at night, there was a man last night, I saw alert there. He was having some sort of lewd behavior with a car pulled his pants down on the crime alert. I have 3 new guests on Columbus Avenue. We have the old people as well. Do not tell me that the situation hasn't gotten way worse in the last few months. And this is a failure, not of us as a community who are begging to be kept safe.
30 seconds.
13-year-old daughter can walk home from school without me having to worry about her getting attacked. It is not our failure. It is your failure. We do not have a lack of compassion. We want to get these folks help as much as anyone else, but we deserve to be safe. We pay taxes. We elect you to keep us safe. And stop guilt tripping us and stop with the silly racist accusations and the nooses. A noose. It was a construction rope, Sarah Lind. Don't divide us further. Let's agree to get these people help. Let's agree that hotels don't get them the help they need. And let's agree that the situation is certainly worse than it was a few weeks ago or a few months ago. And if we start there, then we can get them the help. But stop pretending that we don't have something here that we have to deal with. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Amanda Falk.
Hi, thank you for holding this meeting and for giving me time to speak. I just wanted to talk a little bit about my concern about Captain Zuber. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. First of all, thank you for the service that you do. And I am concerned about recommendations for the public to be taking pictures of either perceived crimes or things that they see going on in the neighborhood. What we know right now is that we are in the middle of a mental health crisis, and that 1 in 5 people in our country are struggling with mental illness and addiction, and that these illnesses do not discriminate. They can impact somebody on a park bench and somebody who sleeps on Park Avenue. They are diseases and illnesses that at their core are filled and are characterized by a deep sense of shame and self-hatred. You already feel like less of a human when you're experiencing one of these illnesses. And to have people take your picture without your approval only makes you feel so much worse about yourself. It's extremely triggering. It is re-traumatizing, and it might actually incite violence. It will not keep you safer. It will make them feel unsafe, and it could end up escalating a situation. So please don't take pictures. Certainly don't post them for 10,000 people to see on a Facebook group. I wouldn't want somebody taking my picture. I wouldn't want somebody taking my family members, my child's picture. So let's not do that to other people. It's very dehumanizing when we're talking about trying to help disenfranchised people who really need help.
Thank you. Did we call on John June?
He's next.
Very good.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Oh, yes, I just wanted to share just experience and then one other point. So I volunteer with this group called One Block Upper West Side, where we just clean our blocks. And so one thing that I saw or witnessed myself was while cleaning West 70th Street between West End Avenue, I did find some syringes on the corner, and that's just literally down the block from PS 199. So for anyone who's saying that these things are not happening, I literally witnessed myself. I have pictures of the syringes that I can show. So, I mean, to have syringes that close to a elementary school is concerning. I mean, I don't have kids myself, but obviously that is of concern. The other issue is I really would want to stress and press that since DHS has not been able to give us a specific time in which they're going to be able to transition away from these hotels, I think it's important that we at least get the criteria that they are using to be able to transition away, right? We can't give them a sort of a carte blanche to say that they're going to move it whenever they feel like it. There has to be, like they said, they're going to use data. So let's get those data points and find out exactly what is the proper criteria to find out when it's possible to move these men from these temporary shelters, and then using that criteria, keep them accountable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Olivia Killingsworth.
Thank you.
Yes, hi, can y'all hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, I just want to address a couple of the comments that have come recently from some of the other commenters. I am an Upper West Side resident. I'm at 68th and Columbus. I haven't noticed anything, any untoward acts on the street, but folks have been asking, what does this have to do with racism? Why are we accusing people of being racist. First of all, we're not accusing anyone of being racist. All we're trying to say is, you cannot deny the fact that a majority of the population in the city's homeless shelters are Black and brown. I believe the statistic is something like 89%. And of course, COVID-19 is affecting Black and brown New Yorkers at higher rates and homeless New Yorkers at higher rates than the general population. So these shelters, the fact that these temporary shelters are literally saving Black and brown lives. The other aspect of this is that it's no accident that our neighborhood is predominantly white and wealthy. It didn't used to be that way, but over the years, various urban renewal projects.
36.
Thank you. And other developments have worked to keep the neighborhood, make the neighborhood more white and wealthy and keep it that way, which leads to segregation. And, there is a long history of white people across all income brackets using their fears and concerns about safety as justifications to exclude affordable housing and homeless shelters from their neighborhoods, in effect keeping their neighborhoods majority white, even if that's not what they say they intend. And let's be honest, many of these fears are based less on facts and more on anecdotal evidence or unconscious biases and perceptions. So we're not saying everybody's racist. We know everybody has concerns. We just want to find solutions, and we want to be aware of when we might be falling on unconscious biases that have a lot to do with race, unfortunately, because almost everything in America has to do with race, as we are all learning these days. Thank you very much.
Jackie Moffat?
Yeah, I think, is Ms. Moffat under Christy Diamond's
Yes.
handle? Okay, thank you. Then go ahead. Ms. Moffat, we can't hear you. So if you're trying to speak, please unmute or. Yeah, Ms. Moffat, I see you in the chat and we're calling on you. And we believe you're under Ms. Christy Diamond's login, but we
Is
can't.
that for me? Is that Jacqueline Moffat?
Yes, please.
Oh, thank goodness. I've been trying and trying. Okay, so I just want to start by to address the last caller. This whole notion of bringing up racism is such a deflection. It is taking the focus off what this conversation is about, and that is our safety. That is what this conversation is about. I have lived on the Upper West Side for almost 30 years. I resent the Upper East Sider who strolls past the Upper West Side and wants to give his commentary. This community has always embraced unhoused people. We have lived with and continue to live with 11 shelters. We have more than our fair share of shelters. And I share the compassion and the concern for the homeless, and the move to move them here during COVID might have been warranted. But to move them here without the services has been a disaster. And it is intellectually dishonest, I'll quote one of my other speakers, to say that there is not unbelievable crime, public defecation, open drug use going on in the street. I live on West 87th Street. I walked past the Belle Nord tonight. There were no guards there. There are people hanging out on the stoop and around the corner. There is no one there. So you have taken a MICA population and you have provided no services, which we know for a fact because our own president has spoken to one of the providers who communicated that to her. And you have put this neighborhood in danger. And I just want you all to think about that when public school opens and children will be walking past these shelters full of sex offenders and mentally ill men and men who are chemically addicted without access to the necessary services. You are just waiting for a disaster to happen. And it's going to be on all of you. All of you. You're not. I have lived here for so long. I have never seen an outcry like this. The reason there is an outcry now is that this is a tipping point. This has gone too far. How dare anyone say we don't have our share of homeless people here? We are home to 11 shelters. That is among the highest in this community, in New York City. I am just flabbergasted that you are not seeing what this plan, which might have been done with the best of intentions, but it was not well executed. People are not being well served. This is a disaster in the making. There must be something done about this. This is such an unsafe situation for our community and for our children. And I urge you as the board who have a voice to make the right decision and say, while we did this with the best of intentions, we cannot continue to do this. As Megan pointed out, these men were moved from another shelter in Hell's Kitchen where the same problems existed, and that community board acted, and they moved them right out of their neighborhood. Unfortunately, they live here now, and we are seeing the same problems that existed elsewhere. So I urge the community board to do the right thing. And I urge the other speakers on this call to think a little bit before you point that racism finger. This is not about racism. This is about safety.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers signed up?
Yes, did Olivia Kingsford speak already?
She did, yes.
Okay, so Ari Blau.
Okay, we're coming, we're just one or two more, I think. And it doesn't look like it's a big queue, right?
I got 3 right now.
3, all right. Let's call it at that 3, okay? So could you say those names?
It's Ari Blau, Ben Rotter, and Debbie Goldman.
Very good.
Hi, it's Ari Blau. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Hi. So I want to just make 4 points that I think is getting lost in this debate as an Upper West Side resident. I think the first is an important point that people want to keep glossing over, but there were multiple hotels in Hell's Kitchen where these men were housed. It wasn't an emergency COVID action. The same problems existed. And instead of DHS and the community and our legislators working to figure out what failed there and how to fix it when they moved, they just moved them in because they had more responsive elected leaders. I think the second thing I want to note is when you have 13,000 people in a Facebook group, perception is reality, but reality is perception. You walk around and everybody sees what's happening in the neighborhood. So for people to say it's not happening just isn't true. And we all see what's going on. And people may say, hey, we're okay with that, but a lot of people aren't. I think the third, point I wanted to make is a lot of people on this call seem to be confusing an affordable housing issue with shelter bed density issue. The Upper West Side is 5th out of 59 in shelter beds. I've heard, for whatever reason, all sorts of Democratic Party leaders from the Upper East Side, like Ben Wexler, came on, where the Upper East Side effectively has no shelter beds. Soho has no shelter beds. So if people want to talk about shelter bed density, that's a very different thing. And the Upper West Side has always been a leader on. And I think the last point is the racial issue, which is, the first thing I would say, this is a safety and security issue. But at the same time, if the first thing you think of when you hear homelessness is race, or you hear crime and it's race, I'd actually say to you might need to check your implicit bias, because for a vast majority of Upper West Siders, including lots of people we know who are people of color, they're offended when people say that. And I think the issue needs to be, are these men getting the services they need? And why did it fail in Hell's Kitchen? And what changed here? Nothing's changed here, right? We're all seeing it every single day in our neighborhood. And at the end of the day, telling these men that if they want to go get their methadone, they have to either go on a subway or take a van once a week for 45 minutes isn't serving the men at all, and isn't providing them the services they need to get better. And the last point I want to make is simply saying, hey, we care about the homeless. We want to get them to have a great life. All of us want that. But the way you do that is by housing them in facilities that can provide them the services that they need. And there is nobody who realistically thinks that hotels can actually do that, except for people who are really just lost their job, down on their luck because of COVID and need the help. But for MICA homeless, that is a very different at-risk population. And we all need to be honest about that, and honest about how you help these men and how you provide them the services they desperately need.
Thank you. I think we're past time. Are we, Doug?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. The next person is
Ben Brother.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi. So I just wanted to say I'm hearing a lot about some idea of a fair share of housing for the homeless. It's not a neighborhood by neighborhood numbers rule. The fact that we get this opportunity to help these people in this unbelievable time is a real gift as an Upper West Side resident. I hear also a lot about these services not being enough. We had a great testimony last week from organizations like Project Renewal about how difficult it was standing up these shelters quickly during this challenging time and all the services they've been adding since that time. There was also mention of like how being pro this and worried about those who are against housing the homeless, that involves racism, and that's a conflation. There's also conflation of homelessness and crime that's going on a lot. Again, this city has gone through an unbelievable shock, and you might see changes on your street. I have not seen a huge uptick in crime that other people are anecdotally talking about. That's not been my experience living here. But even if it was, to conflate that with a couple hundred men who really need a place to live during a pandemic is really inappropriate to me. And I'm so thrilled that our community has gotten to house these people.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And who's our last speaker?
Debbie Goldman.
Ms. Goldman, you have the last word from our community.
Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Great. So I didn't plan to speak tonight, but some of the comments I thought were warranted a response. My experience are not anecdotal. You can hear I'm getting upset because my life has changed. My family has experienced harassment towards me. I have a daughter and a husband. I worry about her going out. She's fortunate enough to have a job, but I have to worry about her personal safety every time she leaves the apartment. We've seen drug use, drug deals, public urination, prostitution, harassment towards us and other people. We no longer feel safe in our neighborhood. I personally would love to help those in need, but not at the risk of my personal safety and the safety of my daughter. And there are a couple of other things. Just many of us struggle with mental health, and us being stressed out, walking in the street only makes our life more difficult. So our mental health matters too. And I would like to tell that woman that said that we're all wealthy, I'm personally not wealthy. So I was offended by that. That's all that I have to say. Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you for joining us. And so I'm going to wrap this up now. We've kept our word for an hour. We thank everybody who spoke, and we will move forward on the ways in which we outlined. And we will certainly, I want to say a quick word of thanks to all of my colleagues, because there's a lot of honest sharing in what we just heard. We did the right thing, which is to listen and not to speak. And so I thank everybody for that. With respect to the board, there are some elected officials still on our call, and I thank them for staying with us well past. I bullied them into a 2-minute update. And I understand that Councilmember Rosenthal would like to say a few concluding remarks, and so I'm going to call on her. And if anybody else wants to do that from our elected officials, I will entertain it, and then we'll wrap up our board meeting. Councilmember Rosenthal, thank you for chiming back in.
Thanks so much, Mark. And I want to emphasize that you really have done a yeoman's job here tonight. I mean, it's your full board meeting, and you already had a community conversation about this topic. So to give people, again, the space to voice their concerns, I just think is terrific. I really just want to make some points of clarification. About a half a dozen people, I'm not going to name them, but about a half a dozen people who spoke tonight about their concerns were on the call that we had just prior to this call, which was a call with PS87 and PS9 parents. And on the call were the people who really have the answers. So we had Captain Zuber there, and we had Project Renewal on the phone. And I don't know how to respond, and people are welcome to email me, helen@helenrosenthal.com. I mean, the same questions are asked over and over, and in many ways, the same responses are given. And I'm trying to figure out where's the disconnect. And I am really wanting to be constructive in helping to make the connection for people. So let me start by saying there's absolutely a problem on the Upper West Side. For those of you who were on the call with PS 87.9 and other school parents, I made that very clear. It is very worrisome. I know people have been accosted. I've talked to many of them. If someone else wants to call me and talk about it, feel free to email me. I've returned the calls of 4 or 5 dozen people. I'm trying to get through them all. So not only do I hear your concerns, I'm seeing them myself. I'm always walking in the district. Today, on the way to work, I said hi to one of the guards. You know, but saw with my own eyes what was happening on the street. So let's just be clear about a couple of things, because I think we have to notice, acknowledge that the NYPD and the social service providers are doing what they've been asked to do. So again, to clarify any rumors, you know, again, please don't believe everything you read in the Post. So the reason that people were moved from the Project Renewal shelter that was in the mid-50s, I forget the name of it, Washington Jefferson or something, is because that provider, who is located on the Lower East Side in their congregate shelter, at first tried to have some residents stay in the shelter, and they moved about half their residents to the hotel. As we said in the call before, that did not work out for them. The staff said it very clearly on the call we were just on. Staff, which of course didn't double in size, now that they have to be at 2 places, the same number of staff, could not handle 2 different locations. So DHS asked the Hotel Trades Association, which is keeping the running list of hotels that want to participate, and trying to find a match where there would be a hotel that can accommodate all nearly 300 of their residents and all of their staff in one location. The Lucerne responded to that. Why it was the Lucerne, I can't answer that. That's a job that is, you know, I don't know why any of the 60 hotels were picked. I do know that nearly all of the hotels surrounding the airports are filled in this way with the folks from congregate shelter who have been moved into hotels. But now all the services are happening at the Lucerne. So when they move social service providers into a temporary hotel situation, all the difference from what they usually do and now is that each of the clients are in their own hotel room, or sometimes 2 to a room, but they still get the services they need. They still meet with their caseworker. They still meet with the mental health professionals. If there's also a psychiatrist where they have telemedicine. Whatever else, you can go to my website and see the list of all the services they provide on site. There are some additional health services that are always provided to these shelter residents at the location on the Lower East Side. The van doesn't come once a week to take people there. The van transports people there as it's needed and waits there so people can return. My understanding is they're not on the subway, that they in fact use the van. Let me see. There were some other questions that have been answered over and over again. Zuber has said repeatedly, do not risk your own well-being if you're taking a photograph, of course. But also, if you've taken a photograph, get it to them. And so, and I congratulated Zuber on this, if you look at from the time the Lucerne came here till now, the NYPD has been doing its work. They reached out to their narcotics unit, had them come here and do a bust. That is why 12 people were arrested yesterday, 4 of whom are sellers. The NYPD is not going to stop doing its work. They will continue to watch. They know who these people are. They know if there are going to be new people. If you want to send them a photo because you see something, of course that can be helpful. He doesn't want to dissuade you, but he's making it clear by sending it to me, Helen Rosenthal, or posting it on Facebook. That doesn't help him. Although, of course, if you do, I forward it to him. He urges everyone to call 911. I spoke with a resident 2 weeks ago who was as frightened as the woman who just spoke, who was near tears, about being harassed herself. Her purse was grabbed by a homeless individual. She fought him off. Some other people helped her fight him off. She was so freaked out, rightly so, that she went home and talked to her husband about it. And 3 days later, I'm on the phone with the husband. I asked them if they called 911. No, they had not. So for all intents and purposes, there is no record of that incident. The PD is simply saying, we're here to help with this change. So you have to report these incidents to the PD so they know about them. Otherwise, they can't do their work. So again, if someone has an idea of how this can be communicated more clearly, please let me know. But we are hearing the same questions over and over again, and they are being answered. I don't think you like the answers, and I respect that and understand it and hear your fear and concern. I know I don't want to take up too much of your time. The last thing I saw this question, what's the criteria to close the hotels, and why is it so difficult to get an answer to that question? I feel the frustration. I share the frustration. This whole thing is temporary due to COVID. So it is the Department of Health that is making the decisions here. They are the ones making the decisions about schools, about restaurants, and about when it's safe to return people to the congregate shelters so as not to have hot spots where we could have a second wave of COVID. That's the job of the Department of Health, and everyone is leaning on them. And I'm sorry then that means that there's not an answer. We can't say October 31st, December 31st, March 2nd. It's frustrating, I know, but we're trying to have answers to your questions. They are all valid. all of them are valid. All of them are valid. We are trying hard to get answers. But when we provide those answers, I do think that people need to acknowledge those answers. So when people say in meeting after meeting after meeting, there are no social services being provided at these hotels, that is not correct information. It's not. Please, it's not correct. The correct information is all of the services they were getting when they were in congregate shelter, they are now getting at these temporary hotel placements. All of them. NYPD is doing a great job. They just, and we should all thank them in our own different ways. Maybe go on Twitter and thank Zuber and retweet his tweet about the narcotics arrests. So
Okay, thank you,
I
Helen.
want to respect and validate everyone's concerns, but I am asking you all to respect and validate the answers that are being given to your questions. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mark. Sorry to take
Thank you so much, Council Member. I believe that Senator Hoylman wanted to say a somewhat quicker final word. Yeah. And I'm going to give him that quick chance, and then I think we're going to call this a night.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you, Mark, and everyone who had comments. We, the elected officials, are listening to all of the comments. I wanted to thank the council member for her words. You know, she's having to do, you know, a lot of, you know, cleanup because of an issue that, you know, was due to COVID and lack of planning, you know, was presented to our community without any notice. And that's just a fact. And I appreciate everything that she's been doing to provide those answers. And it's so important that people continue to speak up in forums like this. So Mark, thank you for providing that. And I don't think being compassionate about homeless, especially during a COVID, you know, 19 scenario, is mutually exclusive from needing to know what the plan is going to be moving forward. And I'm glad that we're on both tracks with this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Rich, I think you had a very important point to make.
Yeah, I just want to make really clear that there were some accusations that not everyone got to speak, and that's completely false. Everyone who signed the form requesting to speak was given the opportunity to speak. So thank you, Mark. Thank you for everyone for allowing that to happen. But no one can say that they weren't given an opportunity to speak.
Very good. Unless I see, I believe we've covered all the business that we need to do tonight. And there's nobody else in the sign up. So I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. Shelley always seems to be the one that gets to do that. How is it that Shelley is the one that gets in there first? Thank you, Shelley. I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Is there anybody that objects? Hearing none. I thank everyone for your patience and for your, I'm actually going to take one more second of your time to thank my colleagues because we were here to listen, and that's exactly what we did. And I'm certain at one time or another that may not have been an easy thing to do. Certainly, there haven't been a lot of community board meetings at which words like defecation and masturbation are used. And I am just so grateful that everybody hung in there with us. All of us are here. All of us listened to everything that was said by everybody. I couldn't be more proud of the group that I serve. And I thank you for your patience and for your service in this regard. Everybody have a good night.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Mark.
Thank you.